Good afternoon, everyone. I bring the meeting to order. We'll bring the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Chair Delgado.
Here.
Vice Chair Lucy.
Here.
Michael Brown.
Here.
Councilman Dare.
Here.
Dr. Dinko. Here. Dr. Clacking.
Here.
And Dr. Novak will be absent. We have a quorum, Chair.
Thank you. Dr. Clacking, can you please lead us in the pledge? All right, let's try this.
Yes, Chair, we have an announcement. All public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person and should be addressed to the Board of Health as a whole, not an individual. With the exception of the public comment agenda items, comments should be specific to the item being considered by the board. The District Board of Health conducts the business of Washoe County and its citizens during its meetings. The presiding officer may order the removal of any person whose statement or other conduct disrupts the orderly, efficient, or safe conduct of the meeting. Warnings against disruptive comments or behavior may or may not be given prior to removal. The viewpoint of a speaker will not be restricted, but reasonable restrictions may be imposed upon the time, place, and manner of speech. Irrelevant and unduly repetitious statements and personal attacks which antagonize or incite others are examples of speech that may be reasonably limited. In accordance with the Declaration of Emergency Directive 047, persons in counties with substantial or high community transmission rates will be required to wear face coverings while in public indoor spaces, regardless of vaccination status. This mandate is in effect in Washoe County as we are designated as a community with high transmission rate.
Thank you, Susie. Hopefully, if we could work on the volume, please. Test, test. That's a little better. All right. Thank you, Susie, for reading those comments. Thank you, Susie, for reading those comments. We'll work on the volume. I hope everyone can hear me. Raise your hand in the back if you can hear my voice. Thank you. I'll try to speak loud. For anybody on the board, until we get that fixed, we'll continue with business. My hope is that today we can work on the business of the people with the quorum. Please hold your applauses or any outbreaks to a minimum. I feel as though there's been disruption in the room. So I'll ask that you please stop, or else if you don't, we'll ask the security please remove you. Again, CDC has stated, please wear your mask and we'll follow all the guidelines administered by the state. We'll also ask that you wear your mask when you give public comment at the front during the mic, unless you have a health issue, of course. So with that being said, I appreciate everyone being here today. We'll move forward with item number 3, approval of the agenda. District Health Officer, do we have any changes?
Yes, I just wanted to note a minor correction on item 13, the appointment for the nursery control hearing board is from October 26th of 2021, including October 24th of 2024.
We can't hear you.
You can't hear me. So what the District Health Officer said is item 13. Is there a correction with respect to the 3-year term beginning on October 25th, 2021, not 2018, concluding on October 24th, 2024, not October 24th, 2021. Any other changes?
No, sir.
Seeing no other changes, I need approval for the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
But
Any opposed?
it's doing,
Motion carries. Before we move on to any other items, I'd like to, for all of us to take a moment of silence. On October 7th, Dr. Todd, our former division director of epidemiology, also someone that gave his life to public health, passed away on October 7th. He gave 15 years of his life here at Washoe County Health District. We missed him tremendously. Please look for his extended obituary in the RDJ are also in the Carson appeal. You would all join me, please, in a moment of silence for Dr. Todd and his family. Thank you. Move on to item number 4A, introductions. For many of you, we have a new board member, Dr. Cchs. Welcome, Mr. Cchs. If there's anything you'd like to share with us, your previous experience, we welcome you and look forward to working closely with you. Maybe try to get the mic too. Maybe it's with you.
Can you hear me?
I'm on. Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm John Clacking. I've been in Reno for over 40 years. Went to graduate school here, did my undergraduate work at UC Davis, PhD at University of Nevada, biochemistry. Some of the work I've done has been in research. I've started 2 biotech companies, and I sit on the board of UC Davis's veterinary school for the last 20 years. I sat on the national board of the American Cancer Society for about 4 years, and have been on the boards of University of Nevada, Sierra Nevada College also. So some of my background, it's a little more diverse than that, but my interest is in public health, and personally lost my wife and my son to cancer. So I have a strong interest in that area too.
Thank you, and welcome. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 4B, new hires, District Health Officer.
Yeah, I'm going to try to use my mic here. We have a couple of new hires in administrative health services. I'd like Anna Heenan to make those introductions for us. Yep.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Anna Heenan, your Administrative Health Services Officer. I'm here to introduce 2 of our new account clerks. We have Sherry Martin. Sherry, if you want to wave there. There she is. She comes to us from the Washoe County School District. And then we also have Keisha Olning, who was promoted from the county clerk's office. Keisha, bring up there. These ladies have a tremendous amount of experience that they are bringing with them, and we are incredibly happy that they're part of our team. So I welcome them and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Can you hear me? Perfect. Change mics.
And we have Gloriana Alvarez with our COVID EPHP unit. I don't know if, Jim, do you want to do an introduction for her, Mr. English?
For the record, James English, we've hired Gloriana Alvarez as a department systems technician. If Gloriana could please step up. She came from the Salinas Unified School District. She's relocated to our county. We're greatly happy to have her on board. She's working on her bachelor's degree in software engineering. She'll be a great asset to the health district and our COVID operations.
Thank you. Welcome.
And then Ms. Lotritz, if I could have you introduce your new CCHS staff, and maybe stick around for the promotions as well.
All right. Lisa Lotritz, Division Director for Community and Clinical Health Services, for the record. I'll start with Brianna Contreras. Stand. Brianna is the newest member of our IZ clerical team. She comes to us from Mind and Body Counseling Associates, where she did medical billing, credentialing, and verified insurance, and did check-in and check-out. And outside of work, Brianna likes to spend time with her family, and she's excited about joining the health district and growing professionally with us. And then next, Lauren. We're happy to welcome Lauren Huntsman as the new CCHS Storekeeper. Lauren comes highly recommended from her supervisors at Aero Electronics, where she's spent the last 17 years in a variety of roles. most recently as their logistics procurement coordinator. Lauren is a welcome addition to the CCHS team, and along with her great personality, brings with her varied skill set, which will complement her in her new position. And then I think that's it for new hires for us, but, and I don't know if Allison Schleicher, can I take these out of order?
Yes, go ahead.
Allison Schleicher, I'm pleased to announce that she has been promoted to epidemiologist. She will be the first epidemiologist for the Washoe County Health District Sexual Health Program. Allison has a bachelor's in health science and a master's in public health epidemiology. She has been working in the sexual health program since August of 2018 as a public health investigator too. She has also been functioning as the lead DIS for the program. And Allison's education and experience and her skills really made her the ideal candidate for this new role, so we're excited to have her. And then Stephanie Chin was not able to, she's hard at work, but she was promoted from health educator 2 to health educator coordinator. And so we're excited to have her in her new role as well.
Great, thank you.
That's it.
Also, we have several resignations. Rachel Cord, Account Clerk 1, has resigned from AHS, so we're sorry to see her go. Lisa Iacoboni, Public Health Nurse 2, also has resigned earlier this month. And Ashley, our Office Assistant 2, actually is transferred to another department within the county. And then we have some special recognitions I'd like to make, and I'd like to ask Mr. English to recognize, and if we could have Katie Doyle and Pauline Schmitz. Are they here to come forward? There, all right. Why don't you come on down?
While they're walking down, I'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, Chairman Delgado, members of the board, and a special welcome to Dr. Cackling. For the record, my name is James English, and I'm overseeing Washoe County and Washoe County Health District's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, I'm again before you recognizing some staff members that have gone above and beyond the duty for both our region and our health district. They're very, you can just, it has been very difficult to get them to come down here for a recognition, so we want to go ahead and we finally got them to come down here. They have made our incident management team and our response look tremendous throughout this past year. Both of these individuals were hired in July of 2020. Ms. Doyle is a registered nurse, and Ms. Aline here is a intermittent hourly community health aide. They have put in countless hours building both their team and their special tasks that they're doing. They are running our homebound program, which you've heard a lot about. It started with testing, and then when vaccinations got approved, it moved to vaccinations. Since we have started this program, it originally started with a partnership with REMSA, where they helped assist and get our staff to and from homebound people so they could be tested and vaccinated. Since then, we took this program internally. We've provided Aline with a vehicle, and the two of them have been all over this large, vast county of over 6,500 miles. In the past year, they've driven over 5,000 miles serving our community. They have been to all areas of this county. They have put over 5,000 miles on a vehicle. To date, they have provided over 1,780 vaccinations and over 500 PCR tests. And that's quite a feat when you consider they have to stay at everyone's house for at least 15 minutes to a half hour while they wait for side effects. Many of you may recall, I believe I was here in February of 2020, when we mentioned these two individuals were responsible for saving one of our residents' lives. They showed up at a house, and many times when they do homebound, there's a note on the door's unlocked, and they've just been told to come inside and go to a specific room and call out the patient and take care of them. They found this individual on the floor and were able to render medical aid and get 911 and first responders there, ultimately saving their life. Additionally, over the past year, they are probably responsible for countless additional lives that they've helped save or protect, helping our citizens who cannot otherwise get to a vaccination location, who wanted a vaccine. So we are greatly appreciative of that. Furthermore, in their free time, when they're not doing our homebound program, they're helping out at our pod. Most recently in September during our large surge, they came back from administering the vaccinations they had on their schedule. They actually opened up 2 of our lanes without being asked and continued to move through our large rush for testing. And furthermore, they attend many of our community-based pods, and they provide vaccinations there, and that's where they'll be again this afternoon. So with that, the Health District would like to honor Arlene and Katie with one of our challenge coins for all their efforts. Although they are not done yet, we truly appreciate all the work they've done over the past year. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, and congratulations. I'd like to add that the difficulty in having them attend our meeting was due to their commitment to being out in the field,
Of course.
doing their work and doing the pods. So, and lastly, but not least, I'd like to also recognize Julia Ratty, and Ms. Ratty, if you could stand. Ms. Ratty recently received the Nevada 2021 Hero Award from the National Alliance on Mental Health Illness. So I want to congratulate her on that, and also acknowledge her efforts in leading our regional behavioral health policy board, as well as leading leading the facilitation to develop a regional implementation plan for crisis stabilization services. So, thank you, Mr.
Congratulations.
And that concludes our recognitions.
Okay, congratulations to all our new hires. Welcome to our new hires, promotions, and those that have been recognized. Great job. Thank you. With that, Susie, we'll move into public comments, please.
Yes, Chair, we have Ms. Jody Hansen, followed by Janet Butcher.
For those that have just walked in, please continue to wear your mask as you're speaking at the podium for public comment.
It appears Ms. Jody Hansen is not in the audience. So we'll move on to Ms. Janet Butcher.
Janet Butcher, but I like Martha Washington. A society based on freedom to choose is better than a society based on principles of socialism, communism, and coercion. Sweden and the UK's government reports reveal that deaths were due to 70% fully vaccinated individuals. The COVID-19 injection being pushed on people and children does not fit the definition of a vaccine. Calling it that is misleading. Who is profiting from this? Pharmaceutical companies and those who have monetary interest and stock in those companies. Pfizer stock was in the 40s in last year in 2020, in the fall. And then now it is over $400. Johnson & Johnson just announced that they had record profits this year. My daughter is immune compromised and is a transplant recipient. Upon suggestion of her current doctor and 2 transplant doctors, she chose, and I emphasize chose, to take the injection. She told me after finding that those injections for immune-suppressed people, as she takes anti-rejection meds, does nothing, and that there is now 3rd and possibly a 4th injection. She says no more. What is the point? She has learned to practice good health policies and knows what she must do. This is becoming a never-ending pattern of injection after injection, more money in the pockets of pharmaceutical companies and stockholders. The essential workers of last year who worked all during the time of an experimental injection under emergency measures were not available, are being forced to either succumb to an injection they do not want.
He is great.
or lose their jobs. What an ungrateful lot of bureaucrats. I liken the push to wear masks and take an experimental injection to that of a cult. Let freedom ring. The problem with natural immunity is that it's free.
Thank you.
Next, we have Cardi Davis, followed by Murray King.
Good afternoon. First of all, I wanted to talk to Mr. Clacking and let you know my dog was down in UC Davis for open heart surgery last month. And they couldn't have been better and treated him any better. And he is perfectly healthy now. So thank you very much for all you did down there. I'm here to speak to you today in regards to the statistics and how you're statting things on the website and how, presenting it in the news. I'm finding that my curiosity is regarding breakthrough cases. Most notably, we had Naomi Dorr, Hillary Sheevy, and Brian Sandoval, all as breakthrough cases, fully vaccinated people. So I'm curious what our percentage of breakthrough cases are here in Washoe County, and you do not stat that. It'd be a real easy thing to do in looking at this form that you have everybody fill out. You ask in the hospital if they're vaccinated or not, but you don't ask when you get the test, COVID test. So if you would just ask them if they were vaccinated or not when you got a COVID test and be able to stat that. Or a second question I'd like to know is natural immunity and whether that's been statted or not, if they are a breakthrough case from natural immunity. I think that you'll never know. Everybody talks about how with natural immunity, you don't know what the stats are, and so you want everybody to get vaccinated. But you'll never know the stats if you just vaccinate everybody that's naturally immune. So I do believe you guys need to do something with the statistics so that you can get some accurate statistics. Clark County actually stats vaccinated, hospitalized. They don't stat positive cases for COVID that were vaccinated, just hospitalized. So therefore, Hillary Sheevy, Naomi, and Brian Sandoval would never end up on those statistics. And so that's not going to be accurate. So I'd like you to add that on as statistics so that we can get some actual data going on that. Additionally, not doing that leads to a lot of distrust in the system. To be transparent, you need, and if you want people vaccinated, you need to put these statistics on there. You say that 56% of Washoe County is vaccinated, but nowhere does it say how many have actually had the disease and recovered and believe that they have natural immunity and do not need to get the vaccine. And that's something totally different. I think if you did those stats, you'd find that probably it's more so like 90% in Washoe County instead of 56 or 60, because a lot of us, me included, have natural immunity and don't want to take the shot because we don't know what that's going to do. So therefore, I'm wishing that you would consider that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Mr. Murray King, followed by Ms. Cindy Sassenrath.
Hello, I'm Murray Kane, taxpayer and resident of the city of Reno, county of Washoe. I want to talk about the fact that the country is founded on democratic principles, and yet none of you were elected to this position. You run our medical lives, you tell our doctors what to do, you tell our nurses what to do, you tell our pharmacists what to do, but none of you were elected. There's 3 elected representatives, but there was no ballot ever given to a voter saying that you were running for Board of Health. In any case, 4 of you are appointees. One of you, I have nothing personal against him, but one of you is an appointee of an appointee. Given all the tyranny, the emphasis on treatment, when you gave awards out to the employees just now, you talked about number of vaccines, you talked about numbers of tests, you didn't talk about numbers of handing out treatment packets like they did in India when they cured this censorship, the controversies forcing people to take an unapproved experimental gene therapy dressed up as a so-called vaccine, medical apartheid. As soon as we get a governor and a state legislature that truly cares about Nevada families, Nevada businesses, Nevada working people, and cherished American values, we need to repeal Chapter 439.370, which establishes this unappointed, undemocratic entity which runs our lives, and there's nothing we can do. We can't vote you out, we can't vote you in, and we can't have it that way. We have to have the people directly elect this Board of Health. Item 13, I was misled because you made a significant change to that item. It was, you changed the date by 3 years. I thought it was 2021, not 2024. Also, you violated the, I don't want to have to go through a corrective action. You violated the open meeting law because you voted on a matter involving the year 2024 without it being noticed. No member of the public knew that you were going to act on something that was dated 2024, that runs all the way to 2024. And yet you went ahead and approved the agenda. So I suggest instead of taking action on that item and avoiding a violation of the open meeting law, you take it off the agenda and properly post it next time. And then I also want to talk about the, your total lack of emphasis on treatment. Item 7 is a presentation. There's no public comment on presentations, but you had to wait until Merck came out with a drug that's 48 times as expensive as other cheaper alternatives to talk about treatment on your agenda. That should be, you're supposed to be looking at how to deal with this disease, but you never talk about treatment, just forcing people to take unapproved experimental gene therapies.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I'll be back.
We have Ms. Cindy Sasarath, followed by Susie Howe.
Good afternoon. I thought I would start by defining emergency since apparently the governor does not know what it means. It's a serious, unexpected, and often dangerous situation requiring immediate action. COVID-19 was an emergency back in March of 2020, and I would appreciate it if everybody could pay attention to the public comment because I'm not up here just to hear myself talk. Okay, maybe for a few months it was an emergency. Nobody's saying it wasn't, but it has not been an emergency for over a year now, people. You continue to treat it as such. We need you to stand up for us and our rights. We don't need you just kowtowing to the Democrats and their ridiculous left-wing agendas. People understand their options now. If you're health compromised, don't go in a large crowd. You know, our previous speakers spoke about that. Her daughter's health compromised. She's taking care of ourselves. We are all educated people that know how to take care of ourselves. I had COVID-19 in December of 2020 before the vaccine was available. I developed a robust immunity. I just verified my T-cell immunity a few weeks ago with a blood test, and maybe the doctor over there could explain what T-cell immunity is to you later if you don't know. But why are people with natural immunity treated the same as those who have not had COVID? It doesn't make any sense. You should be encouraging doctors to provide early treatment. It's a crime against humanity. The people who test positive are told to stay home until they are so sick they are likely to die. And having tested positive, that's what I was told. Go home, don't go near anybody, and hopefully you won't die. No treatment options given. Masks are a joke. I have pamphlets here that I'm going to ask the secretary to give all of you so you can read them after I finish speaking, or hopefully after everybody else has finished speaking. Studies are showing that they don't prevent the spread of COVID, and they possibly increase our risk of other respiratory illnesses, especially children who don't understand the necessity of keeping a mask clean. Actually, I don't think many adults understand it either. Am I the only one who has seen someone touching their mask? That's a big no-no, right, doctor? Am I the only one who's seen a mask fall on the ground only to be picked up and put back on the face? You are supposed to represent us. I'm not asking you to make people stop wearing masks, get vaccinated. If you want to wear a mask, go for it. If you want to get vaccinated, go for it. I'm asking you to revoke this emergency declaration by our governor, lift the mask mandate, and ban vaccine passports. This is not Nazi Germany. and we get to make our own medical choices here. Does my body, my choice only apply if I want to kill an innocent baby? I want my constitutionally protected freedoms back and expect you, as our leaders, to give them to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Ms. Susie Howe, followed by Mr. Bruce Foster.
Good afternoon. I can't believe that we're still involved in this kabuki theater of masquerading. Yes, sir. I'm watching half of your masks falling off your noses. We have mesh masks. We have see-through masks. We have cute, funny little masks. Do you really think that we're in such a pandemic that we must wear masks at all times? Secondly, we have thousands of people crossing our border who are not required to wear masks. What kind of a pandemic is this? It's kind of interesting, huh? And to you, Mr. Dick, I just read
Please
that
make your comments to the entire board, ma'am.
Okay,
Not directed to an
all of you,
individual.
because I'm sure you all feel the same as he does, that you're so excited 5 to 11-year-olds can get this death jab. Can any of you sitting up here today tell me what's in it? Any of you? Are you aware there's graphene oxide in it? Are you aware it's genetic therapy? You're an operating system when you get this, yet you people want our children to be poisoned by this. This is the biggest joke, and none of you are going to get away with this in the end. If not, through our own community, God will find you in the end, and it won't look good.
Thank you.
We have up next Mr. Bruce Foster, followed by Bev Stenenheim.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Bruce Foster for the record. And if I could get the overhead. Thought we'd start from the beginning.
One second.
They're working on it.
Oh. I think we all know who this gentleman is. This is Pope
Start the clock.
Fauci. I think we can go back, been with the NIH and such, and worked for the government for over 40 years. And we know that he's an outstanding citizen, truthful, honest, and gave us the right information right at the get-go with conferences with Bill Gates. And then working with this gentleman, I think we know the gentleman on the left in Washington, and he worked it out with Big Pharma, or previously, where now Big Pharma, J&J, Moderna, and Pfizer have no liability, or they're immune to any liability of any effects to the jab. And we now know that it is now rolling downhill, and we all know who this individual is. That's our governor of Nevada, and he's continuing with this emergency mandate after almost 2 years. And what has it gotten us? We're still now one of the 8 states in the country that still require a mask, both vaccinated and unvaccinated. And then further down, we now see written up that now our chancellor of the University of Nevada, Reno, is now restricting all of us from those that are unvaccinated to be able to even attend a basketball game or any sporting event. And there are so many individuals that have determined my body, my choice. So with myself that I've already had the China virus, I am also now looking at not being able to attend. So my question is to all of you, is this discrimination? Is this now a division between the vaxxed and unvaxxed, the clean or unclean? And as studies have shown by many brilliant individuals, natural immunity longer lasting than protection from COVID-19 vaccines. And this is from the developer of the mRNA studies, or I should say the thing there, from Dr. Robert Malone.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Bev Stenjum. I'm an average citizen here in Reno. All of you here are supposed health experts, I'm assuming. We even have a doctor here. So I'm going to name off a few facts that I have been able to learn and read, and I'm sure you must all be well aware of this. I would appreciate if you guys would be watching and looking at me when I'm speaking. Otherwise, I don't feel like you're hearing me, Christopher. Okay, so number one, it's supposedly not a pandemic anymore. It's an endemic. Two, this is really not a vaccine. You guys know that. It's not a traditional vaccine. It is experimental gene therapy. As you know, I don't even have to tell you what real vaccines, traditional vaccines do. They give you a little bit of that virus so that you develop an immunity so that if you come across this virus, you're protected. That's not what this COVID shot does. You guys know that. I don't have to tell you that. And you guys should know that what the FDA supposedly approved, that Comirnaty shot, it's not even available in the United States. You guys know that, right? I don't have to tell you that. So the only shot that is available is the emergency use shot, right? Okay, what else? You guys know that this virus is 99.7% survivable, correct? So why are we having this emergency? These masks, as you know, are a joke. You can wear any mask, it's just blind compliance. Just wear a face covering, don't let people see your face, people. I'm wearing this thing, this gets me in everywhere, and it's full of holes. You guys know it's a joke, right? So what I wonder is, why are you doing this? Is it because you guys are getting money? We're one of the few states that still carry on this charade. So I'm wondering, why are you guys doing it? Follow the money, everybody says. So you must be getting a lot of money from the federal government to keep us under control. I had COVID last year. My doctor said the same thing. I can't help you. If you get really bad, go to the emergency. I had 2 friends die from this because no doctor was prescribing any therapeutics. You guys know that Cchs, hydroxychloroquine, and Ivermectin, they're both very effective in treating this virus. It's been proven in Israel, the UK, and other countries. You guys know that. I don't have to tell you that. Why won't you let the doctors here prescribe it? You have blood on your hands. End this ridiculous emergency.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Ms. Cynthia Miller, followed by Mr. Donald Fossum.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Miller. I'm actually from Fernley. I drove in today so I could be in this meeting. I just want to make sure this doesn't continue into my county, which is Lyon County. And also I went to the Lyon County website, like yours here today, And it says ivermectin does not work. It hasn't been proven to work, and it can cause serious complications or something. And it's like, I don't think you've been reading proper news. Most of the news you hear on the television is not correct. Ivermectin does work, and people are not dying of ivermectin. And as far as the mask, when I wear a mask, I feel afraid, I feel fearful. I guess that's the same thing. But I can't speak, I can't tell if someone's happy. Are you happy with me? Are you sad? Oops. And one time I was talking to my girlfriend, she said, were you mad at me yesterday? I'm like, what do you mean? And she says, I thought you were looking at me like you're angry. It's like, you can't see what I'm thinking. I mean, you see my eyes, that's about it. But anyway, on another point, I'm from Seattle, Washington. I grew up there, I've been there for 54 years. Luckily, I moved out of there 2 years ago. And right now, King County is pushing this actually, they already passed it, vaccine passport. You can't go anywhere pretty much, but you can go to a casino, an Indian-run casino who gives money to the Democratic Party. You don't have to have a vaccine. So it's kind of strange why they do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Mr. Donald Fossum, followed by Ann Sweeter.
For the record, my name is Donald Fossum, and I'm unqualified to be here based on the fact I shouldn't be alive. You know what the statistics are? Somebody 76 years old should not have been going to huge Trump rallies and continue on with great conservative rallies we've been having since. The kind of rallies that get ourselves in position to confront you about this COVID crap that's going on. And I'm here to tell you that your COVID cash in the clouds that you are compliant to and you wish to keep raining down on you is uncurable debt. Now I'm going to play something for you from your fearless leader.
Show, he made the mistake of thinking he was going to get his butt kissed like liberals do, but this is an actual interview. And watch the clown prince of medicine in the United States, Fauci, squirm as Hugh Hewitt says to him and calls him out on all his nonsense and says, hey, are you going to resign? Watch this guy freak out.
The controversy since the virus started include the botched testing at the beginning, no research on masks for children in primary care, the J&J pause, the controversy over the use or non-use of ivermectin, and there was no study yet completed. Dr. Collins told me it's not done yet. The no discussion of natural immunity, which exists and ought to be out there. The discussion of herd immunity, which is switched back and forth. The mask discussion at the beginning, don't wear masks, the noble lie, and then wear masks. Now, equity issues in the FDA panel scientific discussion. I've lost confidence in the CDC and the FDA. And I actually believe a lot of Americans, a significant part of America, now have lost confidence in you, Dr. Fauci. Is there a point where you will say, I do more harm than good because people don't listen to me anymore, and step aside?
No, absolutely
Of course not. All right, now I'm going to show you something else. Well, actually, I don't have the overhead. We got time for it, though, because it's going to be quick. If you can turn it on, please. I'm sorry. Okay, well, I'll just explain it to you this way. We are driven by a fear wave. COVID keeps us in compliance through a little wave that started out down here, and then the networks, MSN, and everybody jacked it up, all right? So what we're getting is what starts to look like a roller coaster. Every time that thing tapers off, Fauci's orders change. And then they go, oh, we need to spike this thing again because we're losing people, all right? People ain't buying into it. So they make a new peak, and another one, and another one. How many of those have we been through now? And they're all a crock. Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Ms. Ann Sweeter, followed by Cindy Martinez. If you could give me a minute, I'm going to pass these out to the board.
Sure. Okay.
Go for it. Yeah. Welcome.
Okay, COVID-19 is 99.7% survivable and curable. The shot that people are getting is not a vaccine. It's a shot that does not prevent you from getting or spreading COVID. People have not only died, over 7,800 per the CDC's VAERS report, from getting the shot, but have died from COVID after having all the shots. These shots are CDC approved only for experimentation and goes against the Nuremberg Code. Using this shot to experiment on humans is a crime against humanity and should be subject to an official investigation. Studies from the Mayo Clinic have come to the conclusion that when ivermectin is given early in the mild or moderate COVID cases, reduces mortality by 90%. The World Health Organization has known this fact, but refused to use it and are burying this fact. Not notifying the public on building immunity and cures for the virus is a crime. Most of the people that died didn't have to. This is all about control and making money, and that is just sick. I found it interesting that Bill Gates is the second largest funder of the World Health Organization. Hence, Bill Gates decides how the respective money is spent. Bill Gates' priorities have become the World Health Organization's priorities. Mr. Gates also founded and funds the Vaccine Alliance. His main priorities are global COVID vaccinations, not public health systems providing treatment. By mandating mask wearing indoors and outdoors, knowing that exhaled air contains numerous bacteria and viruses, planners are subjecting billions of people to inhale pathogens that the body exhaled from the respiratory tract. This leads to a drop in oxygen, fatigue, rise in carbon dioxide, respiratory impairment, headache, and temperature rise and moisture under the mask. Medical mandates have no place in a free society. No forced vaccines, no max vaccine mandates, no policies of no jab, no job. Let's start doing the medical right thing and start informing and curing people. I have given you an article on ivermectin and the WHO with references. I hope you will take the time to read it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Ms. Cindy Martinez, followed by Jean Quintana.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, my fellow citizens. Thank you. Thank you for showing up. I want to remind everybody the Constitution of the United States is the supreme law of the land, and as we've continuously reported to the County Commission and other elected bodies, you have failed to uphold your oath to the Constitution. You're in violation of the Constitution. I want to read something here. This is a quote from Aldous Huxley. There will be, in the next generation or so, a pharmacological method of making people love their servitude and producing dictatorship without tears, so to speak, producing a kind of painless concentration camp for entire societies so that people will in fact have their liberties taken away from them, but will rather enjoy it because they will be distracted from any desire to rebel by propaganda or brainwashing enhanced by pharmacological methods. And this seems to be the final revolution. And I would argue that we are precisely in that portion of history, although I would argue that 10% of us will not comply. We have been demanding that all of our bodies of government declare an end to the public health emergency. There is no health emergency. This is day 595 of an illegitimate governor having declared a state of tyranny on the state of Nevada. And I'm absolutely horrified that my tax dollars are going to county employees to deliver the death shot to people in their homes. I'm glad that they are of service and that they're being productive, but this is not the best use of our tax dollars. And these poisonous shots being delivered to vulnerable population under the guise of health is an atrocity, an absolute atrocity that this board is complicit in perpetrating. You are guilty of crimes against humanity. You are absolutely criminally insane. A couple of meetings ago, Dr. Danko made a comment about the importance of the health board with regard to the importance of when they find contaminated lettuce. I would argue that this boot on the neck of the government has absolutely no correlation to lettuce. And the other thing I would say is welcome Dr. Clacking. It seems that your greatest qualification to be here is being in Commissioner Lucy's district. We personally supported the appointment of Cheryl Bennett, who was far more qualified to serve on this board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Ms. Jean Quintana, followed by Patricia Toon.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jeannie Quintana. I'd like to tell you to make decisions based on true science and statistics, not inaccurate science and statistics. The test that everybody's been using to test for this whole pandemic that's not real, it's a pandemic created out of fear and statistics, was created PCR test by Kerry Mullis. He acknowledged the test was not made to detect this virus. The people who used a sample for the virus didn't even have the virus, the actual virus, to isolate. They just used the regular coronavirus, the common cold. So this test, they put up to 40 cycles, and we get all these false positives. So they created, and then they put elderly people in nursing homes and killed them. It was all a bunch of baloney. So now, supposedly, the CDC is going to have a new test at the end of this year that's going to differentiate between COVID and the flu. Are you aware of that? That's what I heard is coming out. And then coincidentally, all the COVID will maybe go away, and now the flu will come back. Have you seen the statistics for the flu? It just kind of went away. There was like 1 year, 38 million people died, 41 million, on and on for years. And then I think it was 2020, it was like 1,800. So isn't there something, some shuffling going around maybe? And the flu, all of a sudden the flu's gonna come back and they're gonna say, oh, COVID is gone. Well, we vaccinated a bunch of people, so it's gone. So I'd like you to do your research, look into this, check this out, and then coincidentally, supposedly, I think it's Moderna, has a new shot to come out just along at the same time that's going to inoculate you for COVID and the flu. How interesting. So, I mean, my aunt has finally figured it out. She's 86. She got the shot, and then she realized, what a mess. Well, she got deathly ill both times, and she already had some issues, but then she went into AFib. She had AFib so bad, they had to give her different medications. It made her blood pressure drop so low, she was afraid to get up and thought she was gonna die. It's amazing she's alive.
Thank you, ma'am.
Make decisions based on true science and facts, not fear, not statistics.
Up next, we have Patricia Toon, followed by Darla Lee.
Good afternoon, Patricia Toon for the record.
We will all leave a legacy. It's our choice and our decision on what the legacy will be. What will yours be? You are in a unique position by being on this board. You represent we the people, the Constitution of the United States of America. Your decisions have an impact on the citizens. The decisions and the mandates this last year have had devastating consequences to all of us, our children and our grandchildren specifically. These unlawful mandates have caused a decline in moral and mental health. They have also separated and ruined families, friendships, and businesses. You have the opportunity to change this direction. Will you have the moral integrity to stand, to look at the real facts and not be swayed by political pressure, to go along, get along, follow the money? We teach our children not to cave to peer pressure. As I ask, what will your legacy be? Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a German pastor and anti-Nazi dissident, spoke out and was put in prison. That seems to be coming our way. One of his famous quotes was, "If I sat next to a madman as he drives a car into a group of innocent bystanders, I can't simply wait for the catastrophe and then comfort the wounded and bury the dead. I must try to wrestle the steering wheel out of the hands of the driver. Do you have the courage and the moral fortitude to wrestle the steering wheel out of the hands of the madman? I hope your legacy will be something that your families will be proud of." Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Ms. Darla Lee, followed by Roger Edwards.
Good afternoon. I wish I could say good evening, because I think there would be an amazing amount of people that would be here if they could, except they're working and taking care of their family. So the ones of us that can take the time to be here, I think I have heard that if one call to a congressman that opposition or supporting something, either way, they count that as at least 50 to 100 people in their constituency. And we have, I don't know, 50 to 100 people here. So figure it out, what the citizens really want from you. I read through the October 27 update from the Health District, which outlined the 300th COVID-19 related death in Washoe. It emphasized that 2 of the 9 deaths during the previous, or that week, were in their 40s and unvaccinated. However, the details of the rare deaths of younger people was not fully explained. Did they have other comorbidities? Were they obese? Did they have other illnesses? Or were they just unvaccinated? This is an unbiased fear-mongering. And then the rest of the update was pushing the so-called vaccines and boosters, mix and match. It's just great. But nothing, absolutely nothing in this woefully incompetent health information alert mentioned any one of the study-proven therapeutics that have been saving lives throughout this so-called pandemic. Vitamin C and D, the hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and the positive attributes of quercetin, which just recently had 2 studies done which were showing how the early treatment with quercetin is very effective in lessening the symptoms, et cetera, from COVID-19. All right, this virus has an approximately 98% recovery rate. Even if the so-called vaccines are safe, no one can foretell the long-term implications, not any of you, because that's in the future, people. The vaccines that I took when I was a flight attendant back in the 70s, I had at least 10 vaccinations because I flew all over the world. But those were proven. Those were not something that is less than a year old. And so my daughter right now is facing dismissal because she won't be vaccinated. Is this discriminatory?
Thank you, ma'am.
We have Mr. Roger Edwards, followed by Sarah H.
Good afternoon. Roger Edwards for the record. 48-year resident of Washoe County, 74-year-old veteran, 37 years in the military. Do you have any idea how many vaccinations I've taken? You know, this page isn't big enough to write them all down on. And I'm not about to take this one. I'm a diabetic. I've got all kinds of problems. I'm just an old bastard anyway, so I may have to, should be checking out anyway, but I'm not gonna do that. And you guys are smart enough, even if you haven't done all the research, I'm sure you have, but you guys have an opportunity now to not kick the can down the road, okay? We got the counties, we got both cities represented here, come on. School district says, oh, it's not my job. I turned it over to the county said I had to do it. You talk to the county says it has to be from the governor. Governor says, well, your health department can make the decisions. Well, come on, make them. These things don't work, you gotta know that. If you can breathe right through a mask, you know how long I spent in a real chemical suit with a real mask on? It was glued to my face. Now that mask worked. I went into the gas chamber with that mask on. I know it works. I'm a Desert Storm vet. We had to take an untested anthrax vaccination over there or get a dishonorable discharge. This sounds a lot like that.
We have Ms. Sarah H., followed by Mr. Wayne Gordon.
I'm a Washoe County healthy mom. Health is when your air recirculates in the room or outside. Health, for thousands of years, has meant using your immune system that you were born with. Masks do not let your air recirculate. Vaccines are not your body's natural immune system. I have changed my family's schooling for these masks and vaccines. I have changed where we get our groceries from for these masks. I have changed our cultural outlets for these masks and COVID testing. I have changed my family's travel as a result of these masks, COVID testing, and vaccines. I have my shit together, and I'm pretty upset. It's go time.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Mr. Wayne Gordon.
I'm Wayne Gordon. I'm a resident of the city of Reno, Nevada.
Sir, if you could keep your mask on, please.
Why? It doesn't do any good, does it?
Sir.
Look at some of the masks you got right in this building right here. They don't do any good.
Sir.
Some of them are even worse than others. This one, at least,
Sir,
is a KN95.
please put it on. Please put it on. Thank you.
Why don't you put on one that works
Thank you.
so I don't have to listen to you? You've heard a couple people here say today, right, or I've heard them, and I missed the first few because I had to be somewhere, that, oh, you guys are smart enough to know this. Well, I would question that. I would seriously question whether any of you are not smart enough to know that, especially when the MD is supposed to know what's going on. What we see going on here has nothing to do with preventing COVID. It has to do with control. And that's what these are about. I'm going to control you and make you wear that mask.
Sir.
And that's the first step. The next step is make you have a shot, then make you stay home. You guys are supposed to know what this is. And I believe when you were sworn into the Reno City Council, and others of you that were sworn into certain things, I don't see any, the Board of Supervisors, Lucy's not here, so. But you are supposed to take on an oath to uphold this, right? Mr. Delgado, my esteemed city councilman? Aren't you supposed to do what this says? Is there anything in here about us not having rights because of some phony so-called pandemic? If you want to see a pandemic, go back to 1917-18 and look at the so-called Spanish flu pandemic. Recently, or not too recently, but in the last couple months, they said, oh my God, we passed the Spanish flu pandemic numbers. It's just terrible, except for one thing. Huh? Well, it was probably true. X number of people had died at that point. But there's 350 million or 340 million people in this country now. And there's a difference between the numbers. All we're getting is lies on what we're supposed to be doing. Follow the science. Except they're lying to us about the science. And if this Dr. Danko, if she didn't go along with it, she would be silenced. Just like the doctors that are that are trying to do others. We have more silencing. If it's a fact and it's true, they don't have to be silenced.
Thank you.
Come back down.
Miss Erin Massengale on Zoom.
Thank you. Today you have violated my civil and human rights. I have been segregated and discriminated against. I cannot enter the chambers because I cannot wear a mask. Today I was here to talk about requesting that you agendize and pass a resolution to end the public health emergency. Additionally, I would like you to pass a resolution for nutritional guidance for the residents of the county, because what this is about is health, correct? So that we should provide our county residents with information regarding the best nutrition that they could have so they can have optimal health and have an optimal immune system. I will provide that information to the security guards that you have turned into brown shirts. I would also like to ask that we pass a resolution regarding treatment guidance so that the people in the hospital that are now 5 times more likely to die actually get proper treatments for what is being perceived as COVID-19. I am greatly disappointed with our elected and appointed officials. You guys need to do better. Regardless of what anybody thinks about what is going on with what is perceived as COVID-19, you do not have the right to discriminate and segregate anybody regarding anything in 2021. Shame on you. Shame on you. You guys are acting like modern day slave catchers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair, we have one last comment listed. They just listed themselves as iPhone. If they could state their name for the record and unmute themselves. It doesn't appear like they
For
can
the
hear.
individual that's on Zoom with the name iPhone, if you would please unmute yourself and state your name for the record. We'll ask one more time for the individual with their hand up with the name iPhone. If you would please unmute yourself, state your name for the record. You have your 3 minutes for public comment.
This is Melanie Sutton for the record.
Thank you.
So I would also agree with all my fellow patriots in the room there. I would like it into the public health emergency. It is not an emergency. It's been 595 days. It's supposed to be 15 days to flatten the curve. I can understand the 15 days because we didn't know nothing about the virus back then, but we do now. We have therapeutic drugs and also a ban on the vaccine passports. I'd like to know also, what is the difference between today and 1 month ago? 1 month ago, we didn't have to wear a mask to get into the chambers. Now we do. And then also Tuesday, every second, third, and fourth Tuesday of every single month, we go to the county commissioners. No mask required. What's the difference in the last 2 days? What has happened? I just heard on the radio earlier today that the national average is way lower than it was from the beginning. So what's the difference? Why do we still have to wear these masks? I know it is. It's your control. You want control over the people. And it's just disgusting. Thank you.
Thank you.
No more public comment, Chair.
No more public comment. Closing item number 5.
Damn it.
Guys, please mute.
I want to make a comment. I'm on the board, Zoom call. May I?
No, ma'am. Who's that?
Victoria Meyer, I've
Victoria
joined
Meyer.
the Zoom
Oh,
call
I'm sorry. I thought
several
public comment was
times.
over. Is there public comment over, Susie?
She didn't register for comment, but she's requesting it.
Okay. Please, sorry we didn't have you registered, but we're still on public comment, so please state your name and you have your 3 minutes.
Thank you. Victoria Meyer, 44-year resident of Washoe County and a voter. And we are watching everything you guys do. Kevin, Dick, you are not qualified to be in the position you are in. Medical mandates have no place in a free society. We need to have common sense approach to this. It is not a pandemic. It is endemic in society now. Has a mortality rate lower than the flu. You people need to read and broaden your scope of information that you read, because it looks really bad what you guys are doing. It looks really bad for your integrity, for your character, for your jobs. We're coming for your jobs, guaranteed. We want no more emergency. The vaccine is not FDA approved. It's emergency use. The passports, I'm sure, will be coming across your desks at some point. We expect as citizens of this county that you will stand up and say no, and don't be beholden to the money, to the coercion. We all know there's coercion going on, probably of a lot of you, also of us. We will not stand for it. You are our fellow citizens. You are our fellow Americans. What are you doing? Do you really believe that this supposed pandemic warrants what you're doing? Do you really believe that? If you do, I encourage you to go and read and study all the studies out there about the vaccines, about the masks. If you don't believe it, then what the hell are you doing? What are you doing? Getting lots of money? Getting your future secure for your jobs? It's one or the other. We're not afraid. It's a 99.9% survival rate. No children are dying. Why are our kids masked in schools? It's unhealthy. My granddaughter's face breaks out. She's in 2nd grade. It's criminal. That's child abuse. And the testing of these vaccines, there's so many protocols out there to prevent and to support people who are sick. I have several family members who are sick. They're using Ivermectin. Oh my God, and they're getting better. I wouldn't dare suggest anyone go to a hospital in this county. You have no authority to make these policy decisions over our lives. And if I were there, I would be standing in protest without a mask, guaranteed.
Thank you for your comments. Susie, do we have any more public comments?
No additional public comment, Chair.
Okay, if there is anybody else that wishes to make public comment that has not, seeing none, thank you. We'll close public comment. We'll close item number 5. We'll move on to item number 6, consent items. Are there any items wish to be pulled by the board? Looking to my left, seeing none. To my right, seeing none. Can I get a motion? Before that, do we have any public comment on consent? No public comment on consent. Can I get a motion, please? We have a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item number 7, presentation. Dr. Danko, if you please, you could present, of course, from your chair.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
You know, a little bit louder, actually.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah, perfect.
All right, so thank you so much for giving me a little bit of an opportunity to go through just a few slides. And part of the stimulus for this was Councilman Dare. Thank you for mentioning at last meeting that we have a lot of names come up and a lot of medications come up. And sometimes it can be confusing if we don't practice in clinical medicine. And hopefully this will give us a little bit of an update about what we do have available to us clinically currently. And this is going to be something that is evolving, as do medications and treatment options for everything else. But I did make a little bit of a summary table regarding the vaccinations that are available currently in the US, and then another summary table regarding the current medications for the treatment of COVID-19. And I've summarized it a little bit by hospitalized patients, ambulatory care patients, and then those that are still within clinical trials that we don't yet have utilization data for or utilization recommendations for. So with that, we'll start with slide number 1, which is what is COVID-19? So this is a virus that is a type of coronavirus. And more specifically, and some people who have maybe gotten tested would get a test result that says SARS-CoV-2, which is specifically the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2. So people often ask, well, where is number 1? Number 1 was the pandemic that was mainly outside of the United States in other countries, and I believe it was around 2002 to 2004. So we are now in the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic currently. So how does it transmit? And sometimes there's confusion, and that's why we want to, am I out of time, Susie? So sometimes there's confusion. Is it airborne? Is it respiratory particles? What is it, contact-based? We definitely know that it transmits person to person by respiratory particles. And what are respiratory particles? They come out of our mouths when we're coughing, sneezing, talking, and even just in close range to another person because of how we breathe. So, but the infection can also carry on our hands and other contaminated surfaces, which is why we talk so much about those high-touch surfaces like keyboards, phones that we carry around quite a bit, steering wheels, things like that. Those are just a few examples of high-touch surfaces. So the transmission of infection, and that's what can be so difficult with various infections, not just COVID-19, but really transmission of infection begins prior to the development of symptoms. So you can actually transmit a virus before you even know that you're sick with something. And some people can actually have the illness and not really manifest any symptoms that would lead that person to believe that he or she is sick. So then what happens, the virus invades a host, which in this case would be the human, And then it has to replicate and grow, and then that's how, by the growth of those particles, that's how it eventually causes symptoms, whether that's respiratory symptoms, nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, and it can be a slew of different symptoms for different people. Sometimes we see people come in with respiratory symptoms, and sometimes we see them come in with GI symptoms and other things instead. It is actually most contagious in the time when the virus is actively replicating and growing. So really in those first days when you're either asymptomatic or not yet knowing that you're carrying infection, could be when you're most infectious, which is why we have those preventative strategies, a combination of preventative strategies. So, and the other complicated factor is that when a virus or when bacteria invades and finds its host in which to replicate, it can actually be pretty resilient in trying to survive in its environment, which is why a virus and even bacteria can make variants of itself. It can start to combat some of those blocks and roadblocks that we try to put in front of it. And that's where we start to hear about things like variants with COVID-19. We also hear about things like bacteria that then have antibiotic resistance patterns, where they start to develop resistance and grow despite those antibiotics in the body. So, some basics about prevention that we've talked about in the past, and we'll keep talking about: distancing, to basically put the distance between those respiratory particles that travel out of our mouths and things. Avoiding crowds, because there could be multiple people that are infected within a crowd who may not even know that they have infection. We talk about washing hands or the use of effective hand sanitizers, and wiping those common touch surfaces that may be contaminated, and then when you pick it up and as somebody mentioned, touch your mask, then sometimes that can lead to contamination directly. Appropriate mask wearing, to avoid touching your face, touching your mask too many times, particularly if you touched a contaminated surface. And then, of course, we want to boost our natural immune system. We celebrate our natural immunity, and we want to boost that in certain ways. So I have a slide coming up about that. And then we talk about vaccination, because it's been around for a long time, and we know that vaccines work for various different conditions. It's actually helped us to eradicate certain conditions. So let's talk about natural immunity after COVID-19. We talk about that sometimes here in public comments, and we appreciate those comments. Antibodies do develop after the body has exposure to viral infections, and those antibodies are there to help us recognize that virus, and when that virus comes a second time or a third time, then those antibodies attack that virus and prevent it from replicating and from growing inside the host. So we do know that most patients do develop antibodies to COVID-19, but what we don't know is what level of antibodies are adequate to adequately combat another exposure to the virus from getting sick. And some patients don't develop antibody responses to COVID, which is a little bit unlike some other viral response that we've seen before. Additionally, antibody levels that develop from natural immunity can wane over time, just like the immunity that we can develop from vaccination as well, which is the role for boosters and things like that, which we'll talk about. So patients can actually become reinfected with COVID after developing natural immunity to COVID, and that can either be from one of two reasons. One, you didn't build enough natural immunity, your immune system didn't have the opportunity to build the antibodies, or your antibody levels have already waned over time, or potentially the virus has developed a variant where now the virus is just different enough that natural immunobodies that you have, those antibodies, are no longer going to work around a virus just a little bit different and can now lead to invasion and new infection. So when we talk about COVID-19 vaccines, the table I made here has the 3 that are improved in the US, but I think it's important to highlight that worldwide, we have multiple different options. This is a slide from last week from the World Health Organization. There are 23, at that time last week, there might be more now, 23 different vaccines approved for COVID-19 worldwide in at least one country or more. And there are currently 145 vaccines in trial. I broke them down by phase, 37 in phase 1, 59 in phase 2, and 49 in phase 3, 8 that are no longer progressing through the phases because they've been stopped somewhere along the line. There are 7 vaccinations total that are approved by the World Health Organization, and we use 3 of those 7 approved vaccines in the United States. So this is a small table here, but this table highlights a little bit about dosing. It highlights a little bit about the mechanism so that we can understand how these work. Then it talks a little bit about authorization, and here I've used 2 different terminologies. The FDA, which is the Food and Drug Administration, gives us different levels of approval. One is an emergency use authorization. What's that?
All these comments from the audience, please. Why is she lying to the people? Sir. You can't control yourself while I ask you to leave the chambers.
So the EUA on this table stands for emergency use authorization, which is one level that is an approval for use in emergencies such as a pandemic. The next level up from that by the FDA is a full FDA approval. So we do have within Pfizer, we do have FDA approval for 16 and over, and the other vaccine options, and including those for 12 to 15 years with the Pfizer, is under emergency use authorization. I put a little bit about dosing, the 2-dose series versus the 1-dose series, and then sometimes there's questions regarding what qualifies for a immunocompromised additional dose, sometimes referred to as a 3rd dose, and what qualifies as a booster. So I've put a little bit of clarification here on the table as well. The additional dose is really to help those who are immunocompromised, who need extra help for the immune system that might not be as robust because of certain medical conditions. And a booster dose is really that of a boost to the immune response, and there are certain categories of people that is currently recommended for as well. And then I added the timeline based on the different vaccinations as well. With respect to the serious health problems or the serious complications, I highlighted some of the ones that are most prevalent at the bottom of the table, and I also highlighted that they are very rare. So at this point in time, the benefits do outweigh those risks. So let's talk about lungs and breathing. And the reason I have this slide is because I've heard so many times here that people say, unless you're sick enough to be in the hospital, which is where I practice clinically, then they're being told to go home and that there's nothing that you can do. And there are some things we can do to boost our own immune system, and there are also things we can do to help the lungs function better. So here's some basics about the lungs. So this is a diagram picture of the lungs, and we know that we have the trachea, which then splits into the right and left main stem, and then those actually supply the right and the left lungs. And when we break the lungs down into the very bottom part where the oxygen exchange happens, we find these little almost bubble-like, balloon-like mechanisms at the bottom that we call the alveoli. And the alveoli are where the oxygen is actually exchanged. We breathe in oxygenated air, that then goes to all of our muscles, and then we bring back deoxygenated, and we're able to exhale that out. So moving on to the next slide, we're gonna do a basic X-ray review here. So on the left picture is actually a fairly normal chest X-ray. And what we see, the brightest spots are really bones, like the spinal column, the ribs, and then what we see, the black on the X-ray, that's air on an X-ray. So we have healthy lungs with lots of air. In the middle, the shadow there's the heart. Underneath the heart would be more of the GI tract, the spleen, the liver, and our digestive organs. When we look at the picture of the X-ray on the right, we see that there's a lot less black, there's a lot less air. So what's actually happened is that those alveoli, which are little oxygen exchange areas, have filled with fluid, debris, pneumonia, something that's infiltrated those alveoli that don't allow the oxygen exchange to happen. And so the more of the lung is affected, the more that can cause respiratory problems in patients. So how can we globally protect ourselves, whether we talk about before, during, after COVID, outside of COVID? Well, part of it is keeping our immune system healthy so that we can have a good natural immunity to things, and not even just natural immunity after infection, but potentially the immune system that can come and squash an exposure to a virus, and then you don't get sick in the first place. Some ideas to keeping our immune systems healthy: exercise, good sleep patterns, healthy eating, staying hydrated, which I highlighted as important, as some people do lose taste and smell in COVID infection, reducing stress, avoiding smoking and vaping because those are irritants to the lung tissue to begin with, limiting alcohol intake, which we know can also limit immune response. And then we boost the immune system with vitamins. We actually use high-dose vitamins in the hospital setting in treatment of COVID infection, both for mild and severe cases. And mainly we center around vitamin D, C, and zinc, but there are other immune-boosting vitamins that people can consider as well, like echinacea, elderberry extracts, things like that, depending on the person's preference. And then there's another concept with keeping the bases of the lungs open. And this is something that I think really prevents transmission from community or ambulatory COVID into the hospitalized type of COVID that we see, severe infection, where people require oxygen or heavier modes of mechanical ventilation. And that really centers around avoiding the collapsing of the bases of the lungs. When we sit in a chair or lay in a bed, we really don't need a huge amount of lung capacity in order to supply the muscles with necessary oxygen. So we have to keep the bases of the lungs open. What happens when you get infected with COVID, some people have heavy amounts of fatigue, weakness, they don't really feel like getting out of bed, or they're too weak to get out of bed. So then laying in bed actually leads to natural collapse of the bases of the lungs. And when the bases of the lungs collapse, they fill with the fluid like we saw in the x-ray, and then more and more fluid can fill into that collapsed lung tissue. So instead, we can actually try a couple of different things. If you have COVID or early COVID or really any respiratory infection, we prefer a prone position or laying on your stomach as opposed to lying on your back, because when you lie on your back, you collapse more of that base of the lung in both sides. If you're unable to lay on your stomach for certain reasons, then we prefer sides over the back anyway. And then move around, if possible, to encourage deep breathing. When we do move around, we walk around in our society, we walk out to our kitchen, we walk out to the mailbox, we're opening the lungs because you have to take a deeper breath to supply muscles that are moving than muscles that are sitting still or laying in a bed. So moving around to encourage deep breathing, walking at the side of the bed if you're feeling a little bit too tired to actually go for a walk somewhere or a little too weak. And then you can do intermittent deep breathing exercises as well, even in the bed or in the chair if you're unable to mobilize around. We also have devices, some fancy called an incentive spirometer, that you can actually order online, or we give them out at the hospital, which is really also a way to just pull the air into the lungs and open the bases of the lungs. And then, of course, avoiding smoking, vaping, and other harmful exposures that might be irritating to the lungs and might actually be creating even more inflammation on top of the respiratory infection. So here I have a table, and again, there are copies of this if anybody wants it. I'm not going to go through these medications in complete detail because it's going to take a long time, but I just want to have them here for you. This is through the Infectious Diseases Society of America. These are the current monoclonal antibodies available for ambulatory or outpatient infection with COVID. So as you can see, this is a subset of medications available to those who have infection but are not yet hospitalized. And really, these are the combinations. These are the three combinations that are really available to us right now. They're recommended for mild to moderate ambulatory disease for patients who are at high risk or higher risk of progression to severe disease and hospitalization. Within hospitalized patients, so this has changed quite a bit over the last almost 2 years that we've been treating COVID in the hospital, but some of the mainstays, we have used corticosteroids for quite a period of time, including things like dexamethasone, but we can use other steroids as well. And currently the indication for that is for recommendation for hospitalized patients who are requiring supplemental oxygen, which are most of the patients who are in the hospital for COVID infection. There's no recommendation for use of steroids currently in outpatient or ambulatory COVID infection. We do use a medication called, I'm still back on the other side. Thank you. We do use a medication which is an antiviral in the treatment of COVID-19 called remdesivir. And what I've done is I've put both of the names on here because, of course, medications tend to have two names. So remdesivir is a medication that's approved and is utilized in hospitalized patients requiring oxygen. It is an IV medication, so it doesn't come in an oral form. And we tend to give that for 5 or sometimes even extended to a 10-day course in the hospital. We do also have interleukin-6 blockers. I have 2 of them on here, the following 2. And these are suggested for utilization with patients requiring oxygen who are also getting corticosteroids in the hospital. And then we also have Dmard medications. I listed 2 of them at the bottom here. And those are disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drug therapies. Basically, these are medications that are approved for conditions such as rheumatoid arthritis or ulcerative colitis, and we do have suggested use in hospitalized patients who are requiring oxygen therapy as well. And then I've included just some clinical notes on the side if anyone's interested in more information. Currently, when it comes to some other medications, I've put some here in orange. At the top, Ivermectin is a medication. It's an antiparasitic medication that we've used for a long time for treatment of certain conditions like scabies. The current recommendation is for use of ivermectin for COVID only in clinical trials, and that's both for ambulatory care, so outpatient level COVID treatment, and also for inpatient. With respect to Pepcid or Zantac, which is a medication called famotidine, once again, that is something that is not suggested to be utilized unless it's encompassed within a clinical trial. And then convalescent plasma was initially recommended in the hospital. It is currently recommended against use in hospitalized patients as data continues to evolve. But this is basically a plasma transfusion that contains antibodies against COVID-19. And currently that is being used in clinical trials, also in ambulatory care. And then the two medications listed at the very bottom, hydroxychloroquine and the protease inhibitors. These are medications that, I will say hydroxychloroquine was fairly frequently used in the hospital in the early days of the pandemic. We used this on almost every hospitalized patient. And then we saw the data evolved and we realized that it didn't have the clinical utility, and it certainly had some toxicities, such as it can prolong a part of the electrical pacemaking of the heart called the QTC interval on an EKG, and can cause some things like cardiac arrhythmias. So the authorization was actually revoked in June of 2020, and we no longer have a recommendation to use hydroxychloroquine either in outpatient or in hospitalized COVID treatment. So this is essentially the breakdown right now as it stands, and of course we await, that's why I wrote updated October 2021, because we await more data to come out and certainly for our treatment programs to continue evolving. But this way, I felt like we had a little introduction to the names we're hearing and where we stand currently on the data we have available to us.
Thank you, Dr. Danko. Very, very, very informative, and I look to my colleague, Councilman Dare. I know you had asked of our colleague to present. Do you have any questions for Dr. Danko?
Yeah, I want to thank you for sharing. One of the things that I think sometimes is out there is a lot of people think that we are making some certain decisions on certain things, and I think our role is to try to educate. We create policy on certain things that happen in our county, and it's interesting to sit back and just at large some of the things that happen. But one of our roles is education, and I want to make sure we continue to do that. I very much clearly am not a doctor, and I've never claimed to be a doctor, and so I appreciate good information that we can continue to get. And I would ask that we continue to get updates as things change, to make sure that all of us and all of our community can continue to be as adverse of what's happening and just kind of walk through all the information. There is a lot out there to walk through, a lot of things we're reading, we're seeing, we're hearing, and so I appreciate it. And I sit back and I watch some of this. I think when I look at some of the different natural antibodies, what is your advice for people who are trying to stay healthy? Because there are some people who don't want to get the vaccine, and it's one of those things that I personally am not one who thinks that everybody should be forced to do that. I think people should have a choice. Now, I say that, though, there are many still need to take care of themselves. What would be any advice you have? I mean, obviously, you mentioned a few. What would be, I don't know, some robust? Thank you.
I think it would go back to really boosting your own immune system with things like healthy eating, exercise programs, what you can do to try to do hand washing and preventative techniques, and not just for COVID-19, but knowing that we're heading into influenza season, and we don't want, what viruses can sometimes do is co-infect, meaning that they kind of come to each other's party, because one knocks down your immune system and how well you're feeling, and another one has a little bit more of an ability to attack. So really, preventative measures of hand washing, mask wearing, distancing, doing all of those things can help us not just with COVID-19, but with other respiratory viruses as well, and other non-respiratory conditions also. So I think just really boosting your own immune system, taking vitamins, healthy sleep patterns, things like that would be the most helpful for natural immunity.
Thank you. From the other board members, Dr. Clecking.
I'd like to make a few comments here. Am I on there? Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate what both of them have said there. Also, I believe in everybody should have a choice. I'm in favor of that, and I am not vaccinated. I have been running through this. I've traveled around the world. During the last 2 years, I've not stopped traveling. I am a big believer in vitamin D, and I would hope all of you would look forward to seeing that. I'd love to do a presentation here on that and speak to you a little bit more of that. I am pro-vaccination. I have not taken this vaccination yet, okay? So you understand that I am a pro-vaccination person. Yes, most vaccinations take 5 to 10 years to develop. This one was done very fast, as some people have pointed out. I do want to speak directly on this, and I would like you to all listen and do your own research on this. Vitamin D is a vitamin, is a vital amine. Vitamin D is not a structure like other vitamins. It is a steroidal structure, and it acts more like a hormone. It actually penetrates the cell, goes into the membrane, through the membrane, and interacts with the nucleus. We did not know until 10 years ago the role it played in the immune system. There are major studies out there, summary studies that show how it reacts with not only T and B cells, but interacts directly with viruses. Interestingly, its specific attack is on viruses of the lungs. So that's very interesting. Also, it acts as a steroidal component, which stops inflammation. When people get this COVID, they end up dying mainly from the inflammatory reaction that your body reacting to this virus. It sets off what's called a cytokine storm, and that cytokine storm is what kills you. So if you can see that Dr. Danko has talked about some steroids in treatment here, and when you do go into the hospital, they give you vitamin D. Now, the USDA has always set a vitamin D level. It used to be 400 international units. I don't know what it is right now, maybe 600 or so. They've moved it up. But there are a lot of people out there taking much higher levels, which I do too. I'm not telling you this is going to protect you, but I do believe that this has given me some protective functions, and I do believe in it. You need to go out there and do the research. This is a lot of University of California research, the #1 public institution in the world doing this research. You can find this out there, and I would insist or encourage all of you to go out and look at this. Basically, as Dr. Danko said, she talks about the alveoli and what happens in the lungs. Those are endothelial cells that are being attacked in the lining of your lungs, and this may help prevent that. My research, my biotech company is an
Dr.
endothelial
Clacken?
cell company.
If I may, do you have questions for Dr. Danko? I don't want to speak out of our to break open meeting law.
No, I just
With
encourage
respect
that
to
we,
her questions to her report.
no.
Okay. Thank you. Chief Brown.
No, thank you, Dr. Danko. Appreciate all the discussions taking place, and you made it simple, so I appreciate that.
Okay. Further, Dr. Danko, would you like to reply to any questions asked by the board? No, would this PowerPoint be available to the public as it should be? Is it available now
We
for
can
Susie to-
certainly make it available. Hello? We can certainly make it available. I'm happy to do that. And also, I think we'll be happy to answer questions, because I think it's very important for us to keep the information flowing and keep the conversation open. And so we're always here to provide the information, like you said.
And Dr. Clacken, with all due respect, we'd love to have a presentation from you. I just want to make sure we're staying in course with respect to open meeting law, as it was her presentation and questions directed towards her. But I'm sure we'll work with you on providing presentations very similar to Dr. Danko.
Thank you. And I do plan to get vaccinated, by the way. So I just wanted to add that in.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments, sir.
For the record, Chair, I just wanted to let the public know that Dr. Danko's presentation will be posted on our website, so.
Perfect. Right after the meeting.
Yes.
So please look forward to getting that. Thank you again for educating us and continue educating us. It's important that we're all, and as I explained to even Councilman Dare, one of our, for those that don't know, one of our board meetings, these are all available on YouTube for the public to review. And one of them, if not few others, but I know one of them was pulled from YouTube because they flagged it as misinformation due to a public comment. And so that was unfortunate. And so our hope is, to your point, Councilman Dare, that we provide proper information so the public has access to these meetings. With that being said, we'll close item number 7. Thank you again, Dr. Danko. We'll move into item number 8. The Regional Emergency Medical Services Authority, item 8A. Is Dean here? No?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Aaron Abbott, Executive Director for REMSA. Have you all received a copy of our September compliance report for review? Of course, I'm available to answer any questions you may have about the reports.
Any questions for Mr. Abbott? I do. I know I was on Zoom last time around. You guys made a comment with respect to needing 30 new paramedics and 40 AEMTs. Have we made any progress with respect to those hires?
Yeah, actually, I don't have the exact numbers, but I'm estimating somewhere between last meeting and now, we've probably cleared between 10 and 15 additional field employees from their training period. So we continue to make progress. Believe we've got another 10 to 15 additional field employees in our upcoming November academy. So we continue to hire at a pretty rapid pace. In fact, been recruiting successfully at a pace that we've not before experienced. So
that's great.
That's good progress.
That's good news. Also, with respect to hospital delays, I know that was a big conversation last time around. This month's report cites 224 status 99 exemptions. It also shows increased response times over the last 7 months, over the last previous months to 7 minutes and 30 seconds now. Has there been any progress or improvements made to reduce those delays?
Yeah, we're working very closely with our hospital partners starting the last month of September to reduce the amount of hospital delays. For the first 2 to 3 weeks, we made some very, very strong progress. We were able to reduce the number of offload delays, which would eventually reflect the number of exemptions requested as well. Unfortunately, over the last 2 weeks, the week and a half, we're starting to trend in the negative direction again with offload delays. There's been some challenges by our hospital partners to be able to continue the processes in the same amount of efficiency that we were able to put into place. So we continue to work with them every day on those. We do meet with them twice a week to try to address those issues and put any mitigation techniques in place. We've also been have added paramedics to our staffing schedule that are dedicated to the hospitals themselves for assistance in offloads. And that has a level of success, but again, if we're using our resources, inside the hospital system, then those resources aren't outside, in the 911 system. So it is a little bit of a rob Peter to pay Paul situation, but we do think that it is a force multiplier if one paramedic can manage 6 to 10 patients awaiting an offload situation in a hospital and let those other units get back out in the system. So it's a bit of a touch and go situation right now.
I know there's a lot of effort being made right now by the city managers and the hospitals and of course REMSA. If we can get some more of a formal report back as to what progress is being made for next month, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, we will certainly include it.
Also, the use of mutual aid has increased. Can we also include the mutual aid requests by the agency over the last month in next month's report?
Yeah, we certainly can. Yeah,
Okay.
and those numbers do get reported to the MSAB as well, so we can just include that
Sure.
with this report next
I'd like
month.
to see where the requests are being made and how often and so
Yep.
forth. Thank you.
Chair, quick question.
Yes, Councilman.
Is it possible to, when we are looking at some of these times, to see regionally a little bit how that's looking? And so we can kind of see where you guys are posting, see where our bigger problems are, where we can just kind of see it, because one of those things I know, we all have, different things I know that Truckee Meadows have stepped up recently for a portion of things. I just want to make sure I understand when it comes to the needs of our community, that we can see maybe this is a zone that is not, that needs some attention or any of that kind of stuff. Is that possible?
So let me try to understand your question. You would like to see some type of information or report that reflects response times in certain zones? Is that correct?
So like City of Sparks, so that's where I represent, and I want to know that our residents are, if there's a zone over there, and then the Spanish Springs area, I'm aware that there's been some change of working with our county, and then even in Reno, we're here to look at the whole thing, just seeing where our bigger problems, difficult moments are.
Yeah, we can certainly take a look at that and provide something for
I'd
him.
like to see that if we could. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Abbott, do you guys utilize a form of an algorithm as to where ambulances are stationed throughout Washoe County? I think that'd be an opportunity for our board to kind of see how those are positioned during peak times and so forth. Kind
Absolutely.
of gives us an idea where coverage stays, and of course, when an emergency happens, those change as well. But it gives us a rough idea as to where you guys are stationed.
Yes, we do use a predictive analysis algorithm that helps us understand where the most probable area to have the heaviest 911 incident volume is. And so we can certainly provide some information to this board.
Hence why you
sorry.
see an ambulance maybe in one shopping center at times during certain hours. Yeah.
I'm sorry, just one more thing to add to that is this, even like hospitals, I mean, if there's it'd help us to know if there's one particular hospital that seems to be where you're just sitting all the time, you know, that's important for us to understand as we look at what's coming up.
Sure.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Yes, no problem.
Chief Brown.
And Aaron, you know, we call it wall time, how much time's being spent with our ambulance providers. And RIMSA has taken a big brunt of this when it comes to working with the agencies. And I know it's affecting all of our Northern Nevada agencies, whether it be, you know, fire, local, whatever. Are we working with them as well to try to get more of a voice about what's going on so we can find out their times that they're spending there as well and throw that in to try to help to solve the solution?
Yeah, so we do include representatives from all three of our fire agencies on our twice-a-week calls with the hospitals to discuss offload issues, ambulance wait times, wall times, and if there's any information that the fire departments can share with us if their engines are waiting an ambulance for an overt period of time, et cetera. So we do include them in our twice-a-week calls on Mondays and Fridays.
Last, and for me, another one on your, with respect to your market study outcome. It shows that you guys are pending 2 agencies, but on your chart there, it says only 1 is pending. How soon do we expect results? And then,
Yeah, just some clarification. Is that agenda item 8B?
Yeah, 8C.
8C, so do we want to wait till we get to that agenda item and that staff
Oh,
report item?
yeah, perfect. Sorry, jumping ahead. Thank you. So with that one, can I get is there any further questions with 8A?
Excuse me, I would also like to comment on the report item that was also discussed at the last District Board of Health meeting.
Yes.
Regarding some mitigation strategies to continue to try to help with hospital transport volumes, et cetera. We have provided our community partners, both at the hospitals and the fire departments, with a recommendation for an assess and refer protocol. We've provided that information to them. I believe they've had an opportunity to send that information to their medical directors for approval. We're just awaiting the final consensus from the group before we implement that. We're hoping to implement in the first week of November, which would allow our paramedics an opportunity to assess a patient, determine that they may not have an emergency medical need under a very specific protocol, and if the patient is agreeable, not transport that patient, and instead provide them some other type of transportation to maybe a more appropriate healthcare pathway that may be available to them, such as an urgent care or physician's appointment, or maybe even the emergency department by some other means of transportation.
Thanks for bringing that back around. So the assumption is that once you guys have that memo or that structure set in place, it'll go to district health officer for final approval, or is the process that it's already been approved and they move forward, and how does it roll out?
So, is this on?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this one of the items that's going to be on the EMS advisory board agenda?
Yes, correct. Yes, the direction was to work with EMS oversight and then report the results of our work to the EMS advisory board.
Okay.
There was not direction to seek approval at EMS advisory board, that I understand, just to keep them in the loop and apprised of the situation.
And to work with the regional partners and have them on board?
Yes,
With the approach? And so the EMS Advisory Board is going to be meeting next Friday morning. And so this will be discussed with the advisory board. And I anticipate that it'll receive approval for them at that meeting.
So for clarity, so anytime we're making changes to, of this substance, we don't need a formal process for approval?
So at this point, we have REMSA making some adjustments to the system. And I think what was discussed at the last meeting was not having the implementation held up by the Board of Health schedule as far as having approval in open meeting. And so that the work was to be done with the EMS partners and with engagement of EMS Advisory Board prior to moving forward. And what I think, as far as the bigger picture with this, as far as our direction in the future, is we actually have an opportunity right now with the governor's emergency directive and the recognition with the demands that we have on our healthcare system right now, and the ability to modify the way that we're providing healthcare under Directive 11. This provides us an opportunity for REMSA to make some adjustments and the regional partners in the way the overall EMS system responds to be able to actually ground truth that approach and verify how well it works, which could lead to then modifications to the REMSA franchise agreement that would formalize their ability to continue with this implementation regionally post the directive, if it's a better and more efficient utilization of the resources that we have available.
Chief Brown, did you have something?
I think the discussion's great, and I know a little bit about it from attending some of the phone conference calls, but I hope there's somewhere we can do some checks and balances to monitor. You know, it seems to be cyclic here. Years ago, we were having to call hospitals to get approval to leave patients, AMAM, from physicians just because of things that took place. And now it seems like we're trying to get a push, and I'm all for trying to get people to go alternative care sites. There's no doubt about that. I support that 100%. But a process of which is in place so we don't have anybody slip through the cracks. And I'm sure you've taken all this into it, Aaron, the committee and everything else, but I know what our Councilman Oscar is thinking about is this something that should come back for an approval to the board to ensure it's gone through all the proper processes before, especially if it's going to impact the franchise?
Correct.
Either positively or negatively, so.
Right. Ultimately, at the end of the day, this board is held responsible for the way Bishop pushes out, and so just want to make sure those checks and balances are set. Yes, Councilman?
Yeah, and I definitely agree with checks and balances, and that without question, we want to oversight. I think when last month, they seemed to be an emergency conversation happening just for hospitals. And so there needed to be a movement that there was, now if this is subsided, then that's one thing. But for us to wait for a month for hospitals to be overrun and we have people sitting out there, that'd be the only time that I would say that a decision needs to be able to be made by the EMS. But that's one of the things I don't necessarily know how to do, but that's why that was there, because of conversations we had regarding hospitals and where we were. I have heard as of now that I know the North Valley's hospital is full. I was just there, and it's not all COVID. It's people sick. It's people living. It's people doing things. But it doesn't matter why. It's full. And so if we have people waiting, it's not just a problem for REMSA because they can't be to the next one, but it's a problem for the people sick. So that's why the conversation happened.
Right.
So how would you balance that out if we say you have to wait and come back?
I think I'm all for us moving forward, especially trying to find some way to have some efficiencies to make sure that people can transport it and the right emergencies are taken care of course. I mean, that's a given. Just want to make sure that if things come back to us, that the right information is presented, questions we're asking are questions that need to be asked, and that's what's required of us. So in November, when you guys bring back the formal agreements, or even before that, once it goes to the EMS board, and there's conversations there, and you guys end up saying that this is how we want to move forward, that we get a memo as soon as possible saying this is what the agreement was and this is how we're moving forward. We could have proper discussions in November if those need to ultimately need to be changed, or we continue forward with those in a formal way. We just want to make sure we have a process set out in place to Chief Brown's place. So, thank you.
We have every intention to keep this, keep this board informed through our channels, through the district health officer. And as things progress, we will certainly keep everybody informed on how things are going. And, we're going through a consensus building process right now so that all the stakeholders have an opportunity to weigh in.
It's great. Thank you. Thanks. Any further questions for 8A? Got a motion? Second, Dr. Danko. Further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 8B. Ms. Jobson, Media, Public Relations Report.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Alexia Jobson, Public Affairs Manager for REMSA for the record. You have for your review the Public Relations Report for September, and I have a couple of other more recent things to mention as well. Earlier this month, REMSA Health's Center for Integrated and Community Health Education graduated 9 paramedics. These students began their program in September 2020 and all passed their National Registry exam on the first try, a standard that REMSA Health continues to maintain even as the national average for first-time pass rate is around 73%. So congratulations to this cohort of new paramedics. And also, recently REMSA Health was recognized as a 2021 Mission Lifeline Gold Plus organization by the American Heart Association. This award honors the quality care our paramedics and EMTs provide to STEMI and ACS patients. This recognition is our 6th American Heart Association Mission Lifeline EMS Award and our 4th Gold Plus Award. This is important recognition of our commitment to clinical excellence. Our field providers should be commended for their dedication to exceeding the criteria for this important metric in our community. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about public relations.
And any questions? Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Moving on to item 8C.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Kevin Romero Remza for the record. Before you is a staff report regarding Article 4 of the amended and restated franchise agreement. As approved by this board on July 22nd, 2021, Fitch & Associates is performing a market survey of REMSA. REMSA has completed all financial, operational, and data requests for Fitch & Associates. Fitch & Associates has identified 21 similar and dissimilar EMS services for recommendation and approval of the board for market comparison. These agencies include, and I will speak to your question, Councilman Delgado, in a minute. These agencies include Metropolitan Emergency Medical Services of Little Rock, Arkansas, Plano Fire Rescue of Plano, Texas, Rogers Fire Department of Rogers, Arkansas, Pinellas Fire Department of Pinellas, Florida, Orlando Fire Department, Orlando, Florida, Las Vegas Fire, Las Vegas, Sunstar, Pinellas, Florida, Advanced Medical Transport, Peoria, Illinois, UMC Health, Lubbock, Texas, Richmond Ambulance Authority, Richmond, Virginia, HEMSI, Huntsville, Alabama, AMR, Vancouver, Washington, Sanford Health, Fargo, North Dakota, Volusia EMS, Daytona Beach, Florida, Lake EMS, Lake County, Florida, Wake County EMS, North Carolina, Niagara EMS, Niagara Falls, Canada, Nova Scotia EMS, Nova Scotia, Canada, and 3 have been added to replace Portland AMR, as you had asked, and those 3 are ESD 11 out of Texas, RWJ out of New Jersey, and Cleveland EMS, Ohio. So this group represent a diverse mix of governmental, third service, private, and hybrid public-private partnership So we think we've got a very good mix there. REMSA seeks approval for Fitch and Associates to continue the market comparison with these stated agencies. And I can point out a couple of these agencies that are very similar to REMSA, just so you know that we do have similarity and dissimilarity, and we learn by the dissimilarities as well, so we think that's very important to touch on those. But Metropolitan EMS covers 2,400 square miles to a population of 500,000. They have an ACE-accredited dispatch center, as REMSA does, and utilize the International Academy of Emergency Dispatch, as REMSA does. Richmond Ambulance Authority has 65,000 annual responses, 45,000 transports, and serves a population of 232,000. Very similar to REMSA, as well as Sunstar Paramedics in Pinellas, Florida. Although they serve a population of over 1 million, they have 220,000 responses and 176,000 transports, but a lot of similarities to REMSA. So I think we've got a good group there as we spoke, and I can answer any questions that you have.
When do we expect the study? When do we expect the results?
So as I stated, they received all of our data, and there's a lot of data. In fact, I saw data dating back to 2015, I believe, that we were uploading to Fitch and Associates. They're sifting through all of that now. The questionnaire that went out to these 21 agencies had 106 questions that dig into finance, the cost of a unit hour, deployment, those types of things. Those have already gone out to those for comparison, and they've taken all of our data now, and they have stated to me that they hope to be through that through the middle of November.
Middle of November, so possible
So yeah,
presentation
we are on
in December or so? Is that what we're saying?
Yes, sir. We are on time to meet the market study criteria before the end of the year.
Great. Are you collaborating with any of the regional partners as part of the study? Is it?
Other than the one in the state of Nevada, Las Vegas fire, there's not real similarities or dissimilarities to anyone here locally because of the fact that we run the high-performance EMS system here through the franchise. So we didn't utilize anyone locally, no.
Even with some of the partnerships that we're doing now with Truckee Metals Fire or the mutual aid aspects as terms of
I mean,
transportation?
I could absolutely go back to Fitch and Associates and see if they wanted to include them. The scale obviously would be much different. They don't have the volume scale of REMSA, but if you would like them to take a look at that, they can, like I said, it's a 106 questionnaire that went out to those agencies. They could provide that as well to someone if at your request, sure.
I know there's been a lot of conversations now with more regionalizing support, mutual aid, transportation, and so forth. And if we have the opportunity to dive in and get a deeper breath, and
Yeah.
Mr. Abbott.
Again, for the record, Aaron Abbott. They have been made aware of some of the recent changes that include Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District as a contractor with REMSA to help provide EMS services here in Washoe County. We've made them apprised of that. My understanding is that as they look through the past years of the market study, there's past performance, there's recent performance, and then there's changes that have been made recently. And they do intend to include those changes as a highlight in the market study. We don't have a lot of data around that yet. It just started in September, although they've been providing some mutual aid assistance to us since last August. So we can certainly ensure that element is spoken to, and I don't think that it would be a problem at all to ensure that if there's any other markets that have similar relationships with other agencies, that's highlighted in the market study. I don't think that would be a heavy lift for them. So we can certainly alert them to that and make sure that that's touched on.
Cool. I appreciate that. Thank you. Further questions from yes, Chief Brown.
Well, and maybe I could help out. I think the route you're going is that you guys have said it all along. We're in some very unique times, and we know that right now. So if you've had to alter the way we've done business as we know it with the franchise for several years here. And all those organizations and agencies that you've identified, I'm sure they're experiencing the same types of issues that we are here, but are they also looking at soliciting the assistance from the local government similar to what's taking place here? And if so, some of those recommendations may come out in this study potentially, that you need to further that with other agencies to ensure that we're able to meet the needs of the franchise, or we're meeting them, you know? And that was one of the questions, so I'm glad that, you know, it was brought up to ensure that, you know, that's being taken into consideration, because, you know, we do this every 5 years now, the market study?
6.
Yeah. And,
6
you know,
after this, yes.
so, yeah, and it'll happen again, but these last 2 years have been, you know, pretty interesting with what's taking place. And so I just hope that's being taken into account, so that when we do get the final report and reports presented, we can see that that came out as part of what we're looking at for the success of the franchise and RIMSA and everything that's taking place.
Yeah, that's correct, Chief. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to include the hybrid partnerships between public and private. So we have, I believe, 3 entities in there that are hybrid relationships as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Ramon. Further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Chief Brown, for the eloquence and helping me out in my language here. So can I get a motion, please, for item 8C?
Move to approve.
Can I get a second? All in favor? Perfect. Any opposed? Perfect. Motion moves unanimously. Moving on to item 9. Thank you. Lavoy, Ms. Lavoy, how are you? Good to see you. Presentation, possible acceptance of mid-year progress report, Community Health Improvement Plan.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Rayana Lavoy, and I'm a health educator with the Office of the District Health Officer here at the Washoe County Health District. Today, I'm going to provide you with a presentation on the 2021 mid-year report on the Community Health Improvement Plan extension. As I move through my presentation today, I'll be referring to the Community Health Improvement Plan as the CHIP. Before I talk about the mid-year report, I want to give you some background information on our health needs assessment and the reason why we have a Community Health Improvement Plan. Every 3 to 5 years, the Washoe County Health District and community partners conduct a community health and needs assessment to identify relevant and the most pressing needs in Washoe County. We do this by gathering over 250 health indicators, which tell us about the health trends and health outcomes here in Washoe County. We also send a community survey out to our residents to understand what their needs are. Together, the primary and secondary data sources are then combined to produce weighted scores, which are then ranked into needs. After we've gathered these measures, we then determine priorities with our stakeholders to determine how we're going to solve these high priority problems. This determination is based on our community's collective capacity to solve these problems together. After we've identified the needs that we want to focus on, we then start to develop the CHIP. The CHIP is consisted of community workshops, and then we start working on action plans on how we're going to address the needs that we identified. It was time to conduct another needs assessment as well as another CHIP, but the community's capacity was stretched thin due to the pandemic. So with that, our community partners expressed a desire to continue to work together on solving these health issues that were still occurring in our community, and so we decided to do a 2021 CHIP extension. I'll talk more about the plan in my next few slides. Being that our community was challenged with COVID-19, we collectively agreed to build a plan for 1 year, and we included work that was practical and impactful. To shorten the process of developing a CHIP, we collectively talked to our community partners where work was already occurring. This gave us the opportunity to reach a broader number of community partners who provided helpful insights on what we should include in our CHIP. So our 2021 Community Health Improvement Plan extension includes the same focus areas: behavioral health, housing and homelessness, as well as physical activity and nutrition. These focus areas include broad goals as well as corresponding objectives and strategies, which detail out how we're going to achieve making a healthier community. The pie chart that you see up on the screen is a visual representation of the strategies that have been accomplished starting from January 1 up until August 31st. The second half of the updates will be included in the annual report, in which I'll be back here to provide a presentation on. Our first focus area is housing and homelessness. To preface, I'm going to give you a high-level overview of what we've accomplished so far, but know that there are many details that also come with these initiatives. The Built for Zero initiative aims to end homelessness by reducing homelessness through changing how local housing systems work. There's a dedicated team working on this project, and in the last 8 months, they've been working feverishly on collecting data points They've been working dedicatedly to collect data points that will illustrate where they need to focus their resources. These data points have been gathered together to create a by name list. This by name list helps to understand the scope of homelessness in Washoe County, and it also gives an in-depth review of people who are moving in and out of the housing system in Washoe County. And lastly, this by name list will help to provide information that removes people off of the list and into appropriate housing. Our second initiative is raising the case management ratios in Washoe County to meet national best practice standards. This is including partners including the Eddy House, Our Place, as well as the Men's Shelter. These partners have dedicated efforts to hiring more staff to accommodate caseloads that are more balanced. This will allow case managers more time to spend with individuals to get them connected to the right resources. The star that you see up on the screen indicates that the health district has a partnership with this entity and that we're providing resources to elevate this program. And you'll see a few more blue stars throughout our presentation today. Eddy House started to conduct outreach last year while the sweeps were occurring in November. They also extended their outreach efforts at the Cchs campus as well as the shelters. So when youth were presenting themselves at these places, they were able to inform them about the Eddy House's programs as well as to refer them to resources. With this change in practice, they started to see more clients who needed more resources. As a result, they began to develop a program that's a new engagement program with the Children's Cabinet as well as high schools to connect with youth before they experienced homelessness and before they reached a point of crisis before they graduated. They also developed a counseling and therapy program, which includes one mental health therapist as well as a psychiatric APRN who's been able to deliver services to all of their clients through the transitional living program, which is something that the Washoe County Health District has proudly supported in the past, as well as clients who are going through their Casa de Vida program. Our next focus area is behavioral health. We're supporting a number of initiatives here, but we'll start with expanding the peer recovery support specialist workforce. While we know the importance of PRSS individuals who have life experience of overcoming an addiction and can share similar experiences with those who are struggling with a mental health challenge, the certification process to become certified is extremely expensive. With the Washoe County Health District support, we're covering the certification process so that people can take the courses necessary so that they can become certified. Since July, Cchs has recruited over 40 applicants. 16 are in the process of completing the training. 6 have scheduled a test to complete the PRSS Nevada Certification Board exam, and 2 individuals have successfully completed and passed the exam. With these individuals in the queue, Cchs continues to work with behavioral health providers to recruit more individuals to go through this process. We also have a program, the Living Ideation Program, and this partnership is with the Children's Cabinet, the school district, as well as Cchs Counseling. This program is a knowledge campaign targeting parents, teachers, as well as high school students, and it focuses on youth mental health, and it prepares teachers and parents on how to identify signs of mental health challenges when their student is experiencing one. Partners have provided the first outreach event at Damani Ranch High School, and they're planning to present another outreach event for parents in the upcoming weeks. They've also identified 7 schools who will have school-based support groups in 6-week cohorts to allow for more students to participate because there's a high need in the school districts. The support groups will be delivered by Cchs counselors, and they will focus on normalizing stress responses as well as anxiety and depression. Our third initiative is the Washoe County Behavioral Health Crisis Response System. With the number of projects that have been completed to understand the behavioral health response models, like Crisis Now, and the legislative wins that have happened during the session this year, there's a substantial amount of energy across the community to build a Washoe County Behavioral Health Crisis Response System. In February of 2020, SAMHSA released the National Guidelines for Behavioral Health Crisis Care, a best practice toolkit, which has laid the foundation and understanding of the minimum requirements and best practices when delivering crisis care. Social entrepreneurs, the Washoe County Health District, as well as the Washoe County Behavioral Health Coordinator, has convened partners to begin building this crisis system out, which will improve crisis response among those experiencing a behavioral health crisis here in the Washoe County region. Using the national guidelines, there are 4 components which you see on the bottom of the screen. These are required for a functional and coordinative comprehensive delivery of crisis care. This includes crisis care center that provides high-touch support for individuals and their families experiencing crisis. It also includes a mobile crisis team, which meets the individual in the location that they're at and when they're experiencing crisis. It also includes a crisis stabilization center for those who don't require an inpatient stay or emergency room visit. And then there's also a resource and financing component. Committees have been built around each of these components, and there are participants that are actively participating in the development of this new system. To date, the core team has oriented the committees to the crisis response framework, as well as co-occurring behavioral health response efforts, like the statewide 988 activities. And they're also collecting data points to inform the next steps of developing that system. Our third focus area is physical activity and nutrition. There's been several projects that were accomplished earlier this year to help those students who were at home doing distance learning. And the Family Health Festival Committee continues to implement events in underserved neighborhoods. So far, the committee has held 2 events, one at Reed High School as well as one at North Valleys High School. And these events are currently serving around 500 families. Families are able to receive direct services including mobile harvest, immunizations, utility assistance, WIC services, vision screenings, and vouchers for free glasses, as well as basic dental screenings. The work of our partners have truly made this effort possible by committing to provide clients with direct services or a follow-up appointment. Our last Family Health Festival of the year will be next Wednesday from 4 to 7 at the Neal Road Recreation Center. Our second initiative is our Healthy Corner Store pilot project, which is improving nutritious foods in areas where grocery stores are not in close proximity to grocery stores. So far, the team has conducted surveys to understand what customers are purchasing and the opportunity to conduct healthy swaps. The next step is to meet with the store owners to determine what will be those healthy swaps so that they can promote healthy products and increase customers' awareness on those healthier items. Our last program is the 5210 Healthy Washoe program, and this is a program that's being implemented with Northern Nevada Hopes, Urban Roots, and Girls on the Run. Patients have been identified through their pediatric appointments and who are at risk for obesity. They've been enrolled in the program. They're also enrolled with their families who are actively participating in cooking classes, physical activity sessions, as well as learning about healthy living behaviors. So far, 16 clients and their families have been going through this program and intend to complete the program by the end of this year. Upon completion, all of the active participants will receive a free pair of active shoes. And with this, we're going to continue implementing the CHIP through the end of the year, and then we're going to begin having conversations with our partners about developing the next CHNA, which is our needs assessment, and then talk about developing another CHIP. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Good job, thank you. LeBoy. Appreciate you coming out. It's good to see you outside of the Zooms. Great presentation. Any questions for Councilman Dare?
Yeah, I have a few. Thank you. Thank you for that. And it's wonderful to see all the different things that are happening. One of the questions, can you go to the one slide regarding the housing and homelessness? There you go. One of the first questions is, it just says that it's completed, almost progress and completed. Is there still work going on this year? Is there something not completed? Everything else shows that you're still working on this. Obviously, I think it's an ongoing process, so I think I'm reading, in my mind, I know the answer. I just wanted to make sure what does that mean?
That's a great question. So there are several strategies that are in our Housing and Homelessness Initiative, and what you see here on the screen is actually the entire housing and homelessness focus area. So these are just the key highlights, but yes, most of our initiatives are still in progress, in which these, especially these up here, they're still in progress. They're not been completed.
Gotcha. So we're 67% is what we're kind of in.
Yes.
But most everything we've tried to start has begun, is what this is trying to say.
You are correct. Yes.
Fantastic. And I tell you, collaboration is the key, and I love that as a health district. I know we've had a lot of conversations with this over the years and trying to find our place in this conversation, and I appreciate 100% of where we're heading and what's going on there, and especially our focus on our youth with Eddie House and things like that. So fantastic. And even I just want to officially put out there on the case working side that that is a very important element. Can you give me a little information on the on your care center and where we're at on that? Because I also think that is a crucial element to all that we're doing. That's almost a missing piece from my understanding. And so looking at this, where are we at that? Is that something that we're now just the beginning of forming the idea to raise the money, or is there movement?
So I'm actually going to let Julia Ratty come up and give you more information about that, because that's a complex
I was
one.
probably going to have coffee with her anyway, because this is good.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to answer the question. Great question, Councilman Dare. So, two things. I guess possibly three things. So at the statewide level, well, really at the federal level, the 988 number has been approved, and it will go live in July of 2022, sort of regardless of anything else we do as a community. And so the public will be able to call if they're having a behavioral health crisis, 988, and that will dump them into what are known as national lifelines. And those national lifelines then need to be in a position to be able to provide support. And so what the system is trying to build out, what we're working on in our project, which is the implementation planning, is to make sure that once that 988 number goes live, everybody in our community who's experiencing a behavioral health crisis either has a place to call, which is the first part, and that would be text, chat, or phone, someone to come to them, which would be the mobile crisis teams, and then somewhere to go, which is, I believe, the part that you're asking about, the crisis stabilization unit. So what's happening now is we're doing the planning to make sure that it all will work, but if there's ever been a project in our community where we were changing the wheels on the bus while the bus was going down the road, this might be it, because as part of the ARP dollars from the federal government, there is a specific tranche of money that is for behavioral health. And so the state has released a call for a NOFO, a call for proposals to spend that money. And that money, that call for proposals closes in towards the end of the year. And so right now, that's open. And so what we're waiting for as a community is to see who is going to apply. And one of the things that you can apply for is, well, you can apply for all these components. You can, actually, I'm sorry, the hub is not in there, but the mobile crisis teams and the crisis stabilization units are in there. So we're sort of waiting to see as the community partners who might be interested in that. Now, the legislation requires that they do have a hospital either as a direct provider or as a partner. So that kind of narrows the group. But they're looking at the call for proposals, trying to see if they can pencil. And as that process wraps up, we'll know, do we have some folks who are willing to get started? So to be determined, I guess TBD is the best way to say it. Probably in around January, we'll have a better idea to see if anybody stepped up.
And then my final question on that, is there anything we can do as community leaders or any of that, cities, whatever, to make sure that this opportunity does not pass us by?
So, I think all of you have wonderful partnerships with many of the community providers, and so I think that's certainly one thing that we can do is encourage providers. I think that we all need to have an understanding that while there are wonderfully, for the first time in a long time, some resources. So we have this ARPA funds, but we all know that those funds are going to come in, we're going to get some extra money, but then in not too long of a time from now, they're going to be gone. We also know that they will be able to bill Medicaid, and that Medicaid rate is still to be determined. So they are experiencing a little bit of uncertainty. So if you are one of the folks who's considering applying right now, you don't know what the Medicaid rate is. You know the ARPA money is going away at some point, and then we're waiting to see what the rate will be for the phone fee that was implemented in the last legislative session. So in that environment of uncertainty, as a community, we're going to have to decide, are we going to step up and fill the gaps once we know what the gaps are? And so I think for those providers to know that this is a community-wide priority and that we want them to aggressively go after every ARPA dollar that they can, to bill every Medicaid and insurance claim that they can, to use those dollars coming from that phone fee as aggressively as possible. But then if there is still a gap, that we are willing as a community to have a conversation about how we fill that gap so that we can build out a system that works. I think that would be encouragement that would be super helpful for some of those providers who at the end of the day have to figure out how to make this pencil in an environment that's quite uncertain right now.
Further comments from the board? I got one. We used to partner with Renown because I know as a nonprofit, Renown is required to do a community health needs assessment. Are we not partnering with them anymore?
I think we're partnering with a lot of community partners, but Julia is our director on that,
Okay.
so I'll let her answer.
So during the pandemic, we got off cycle with Renown. We were not quite in a place as the health district leading the COVID response to be able to do the community health needs assessment. Renown had the capacity to move forward with theirs. So they did. We are having wonderful conversations with Renown about partnering on our next community health needs assessment, which will be kicking off here towards the end of the year, because they're very interested in seeing, and I think all of us are interested in seeing in the community what the data looks like now that we'll start to see some during the pandemic numbers. So the data that Renown collected in their last community health and needs assessment was pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Ours will start to be during the pandemic. And so for things like housing, behavioral health, many of the indicators, there will probably be an impact. So it kind of, it has worked in our favor, actually, to be a little bit off cycle because we're going to get a good dump of data 2 years in a row in circumstances that are very different. And then they're going to partner with us on ours, and then I think we're going to work to get back on alignment for the next one.
Great. Thank you. That's my question. Thanks, Ms. Wright. Do we have public comment, Susan?
Yes, Chair, we have Mr. Wayne Gordon for this.
So I have questions. It's about the homeless. How are you counting the homeless? I'll ask questions and leave. Go back.
Sir, you're not to ask any questions of anyone, just direct your public comments to us.
How are you counting the homeless? Are the people who are homeless by choice, are they being counted separately and put in a separate category because they should be? I mean, by choice, there's people out there that are there, but they could have a place, but they refuse to stay in that place. In some cases, it's emotional, but in some cases, they just don't want to be held in. I'm talking to this guy who was that way. And those should be in a separate category. So are they all lumped into one category, homeless? And one other thing, the Healthy Corner store initiative, how are you going to handle that as the inflation continues, the prices rise significantly, and food is becoming now less available and more expensive.
Thank you. Further public comment?
No more comment, John.
Okay, any further discussion regarding item 9, the community health needs assessment? Seeing none, it's an action item. May I please have a motion?
I'm happy to make a motion to accept.
Got a motion? Got a second? Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Great job. Thank you for the report. Moving on to item number 10, the public hearing. We'll open up the public hearing. Has everybody been notified regarding the public hearing? Oh, should I hit the?
Yes.
There you go. Make that official.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Mike Toohey from Environmental Health Services, Food Safety Program. I'm here to present on the review and adoption for the amendments to the Washoe County Food Establishment Regulations. Last month, I presented the business impact statement with a finding that there will not be a negative impact to local businesses. To review the major changes in this update, 1, the addition of term limits to those serving on the Food Protection Hearing and Advisory Board. 2, a new chapter for catering operations. And 3, updates from the supplement to the 2017 Food Code. With that, if there are any questions or concerns from the board, I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments regarding item number 10, the public hearing? Seeing none, do we have any public comment?
Yes, we have Mr. Murray Kane for number 10.
Come on down.
Thank you. I'm appearing both under the open public meeting law as a public comment. I'm also appearing as an interested person during this special public hearing on an amendment to one of your regulations. And your chapter 439, 410.6 says that you can make oral objections as well, or written objections. And that's what I'm doing. And the burden is on you to fully, quote, fully consider all oral and written objections. I don't know how you can do that in 3 minutes, but let me try. First of all, do you really have to add additional regulations and another layer of regulations to Nevada businesses after they've barely made it out of a lockdown and a shutdown and mandates? You know, just because the FDA has come out with some supplements doesn't mean that you automatically have to add this extra layer of regulation at the worst possible time. What kind of outreach has been made to these businesses that are going to be affected by yet another layer of regulation? Secondly, there's less onerous alternatives than adding additional regulations just because the FDA came up with it. But I want you to fully consider the impact on these already hard-hit businesses, people who have lost their life savings, you know, people whose life dreams have been shattered by the ridiculous lockdown. I don't even know how some of them are still in business. Nevada businesses, Nevada workers need more consideration. So I'd like to know how we are going to set this up so that you can fully consider the oral objection I'm making under section 410.6 of chapter 439. I mean, you can't just smile pleasantly at me and sit there and not say anything. I mean, the burden is on you to have substantial evidence in a record that you have, quote, you shall fully consider objections. You know, this isn't a nitpick. You know, these are real people trying to run businesses. I don't even know if anyone's talked to any of them. So I'd like to know what your full consideration of this oral objection is. And if that's not possible today, then I would ask you put the item over so that you can develop your full consideration to the oral objection, as required by the statute.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Mr. Tui?
Excuse me.
Mr. Tui, as part of the rollout of the public hearing, you went out and did a business impact statement, correct?
That is correct.
And that's what's before us today, and you reached out to several businesses that would possibly be impacted by this?
That is correct as well.
And you found that there was going to be no hindrance with respect to the changes required by us as part of the FDA changes?
Yes, and specific to the FDA changes, it actually offers more options for people following the rules and regulations. It's actually less restrictive with the new supplement. So,
Thank you, appreciate that.
Yep.
Any further comments from the board? Yes, Councilman Dare.
I do want to say, just for the record, even with what's said, I don't disagree that just because something's mandated down from somewhere that we just take it. But I can say that looking at this, that question is helpful to our businesses. A lot of us work with our businesses on a regular basis, and we have taken the time to do that. So I appreciate anybody's question on it, because some people don't realize all that does happen or all the pieces of it. And so, do we have any negative response from this particular thing out in our community?
No, there's been no negative feedback we received from any of our local businesses. And like I said, just to reiterate, it actually offers more options. And the reason we did open up these regulations was to add the term limits to the Food Protection Hearing and Advisory Board from the direction of the board, so.
Which, if anybody, just to remind everybody, that actually brings better, I would say, ongoing clarity and accountability to make sure that we are rotating that, and that's what this is about. So with it, it is actually bringing health, and I think a broader perspective to our businesses to get involved and be a part of that. So just important people understand, but it's very fair to have questions about it. It's not a problem, but do understand this particular regulation has had all the vetting that's needed, I believe, and thank you.
Thank you. If there are some, due to a public hearing, there is some recommended language for a recommendation for a motion, if any board member so chooses. Anybody? Councilman Dare, thank you.
I don't have my glasses on, so I have to be able to read it fully. It says, okay, I move to adopt the proposed amendments to the regulations of the Washoe County District Board of Health governing food establishments for the addition of new provisions from the supplement to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration Model Food Code, a new chapter covering catering operations and makeup of the food protection hearing and advisory boards, as well as minor edits and formatting corrections. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Got a motion? Can I get a second? Second. A second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 11.
Chair,
Yes.
will you please close the hearing?
Yes.
Thank
The hearing is closed. There you go. Thank you. Moving on to item number 11, review and discussion, business impact statements. Is it Rubio?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Chair and members of the board. For the record, my name is Wes Rubio, EHS Supervisor with Environmental Health Services. I'm here with Luke Franklin. He's a senior EHS over the UST program that we'll be talking about today. We're here to present information to support the possible adoption of the business impact statement regarding the Washoe County Health District permitting and fees for all underground storage tank facilities. A staff report was included in your board packet, which includes a summary of the potential impacts. All existing UST facilities that have been inspected previously were notified with a postcard mailer and via email with information on how to access all the proposed changes and for the public workshops. During the public workshops, the proposed permits and fees were discussed and reviewed in full. All workshops were made available through Zoom and physically, and all meetings were only attended by persons via Zoom. The petroleum industry was engaged early in the discussion and made aware of our proposed fees. There was some concern that the fees could impact some local facilities that do not operate or have other locations in areas where permitting already exists. However, maintaining these services with a local jurisdiction was favorable compared to state oversight. The proposed fee is equal to or less than any neighboring counties or states where information was publicly available. The proposed permitting fees will also allow Washoe County Health District to follow the previous DBOH direction while using the additional funds from NDEP. We have reduced the proposed fee to minimize the impact to any of the local businesses. With that, we have a brief presentation to just familiarize the board with the elements of our UST program and some of the components of the business impact statement. Our UST program was initially implemented in 1989. Since that time, we have never had permit fees. We have been operating with a interlocal agreement with NDEP that has previous to now provided us funding through October of 2020. Why we're here, Washoe County Health District is currently working with NDEP to reestablish that interlocal agreement. In October of 2020, we had to cancel our interlocal agreement due to reduced staffing and having to mobilize staff into our COVID-19 response. During that time frame, the federal government also happened to cut the UST funding to the state, so there is a reduced impact down the chain so that we're having to look at some permitting fees. Reestablishing will allow us to complete UST inspections, release termination, and continuation of our underground storage tank installation plan review, and those other components that establish a good, clean site during construction. Yep.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Luke Franklin. I'm with the Washoe County Health District. I'm a senior environmental health specialist. I'm actually the person that oversees the program and does the inspections along with another staff member. You can see here, this is actually the installation of 2 separate tanks. They make sure that the tanks arrive, in a good condition, that the pit is built accordingly to specs on the plans. They get tested. They're under vacuum when they show up, or pressure. Usually vacuum. These are a vacuum setup. When we go do the inspection, we actually call ahead or email the operator of the site and ask for certain records. We're basically looking for 12 months of monthly monitoring, annual testing of the line leak detectors, the sensors and monitor, and then line tightness tests if they are single-walled pipe versus double-wall. Additionally, they have to perform 3-year testing on overfill devices and spill buckets, and they have to do integrity testing of under dispenser containment sumps and STP sumps as well. And they have to also have a certified operator of the system, and basically that oversees how the system's supposed to run, make sure things are getting tested as required. Again, this is a typical installation. This here is a site where they have what they call dead men. So this is actually a tank where they have high groundwater. So they've dewatered the tank hole there and put concrete ballast in there. And then they strap the tank down, they fill the tank with water, and then essentially turn off the pump that lets the groundwater come back in, and then hopefully, according to spec, the tanks won't float out of the ground. This is some of the construction inspections for the piping portion of it. You can see there's a little, on the bottom slide there's a little red device on top of there. That's called the submersible turbine pump, and that pumps the fuel out of the tank into the piping and to the dispenser where you enjoy gasoline. That's an integrity test there. That whole sump that surrounds that red thing is full of water. So that's part of the construction inspection. We go around and make sure there's no water flowing out of there and that it's liquid tight. And then there's also a pressure test associated with that. And above that kind of illustrates it. That's just the piping all exposed. The piping's put under pressure, and we go around and soap all the joints and all the couplings and things like that. And if there is a leak, the little bubbles will appear and they can repair it on site. This is the removal of a tank system. Again, they have a groundwater's pretty shallow there. So this, we have a construction permit fee for taking the tanks out of the ground and witnessing, sampling, proper removal, and things like that of all UST systems. And I'll hand it back to Mr. Rubio here. Sorry, thanks. Thank you. So through October of 2020, the UST program was previously staffed with 1.6 FTEs. As part of this process, we streamlined our program. We feel that we built some pretty decent efficiencies in there, and we were able to streamline it so that we're now only budgeted at 1.1 FTEs.
We're also proposing a higher level of service going forward with a physical inspection every other year and a compliance inspection every other year, so the alternating years. So 1 year is a physical and 1 year is a paperwork with compliance, to ensure that all facilities are maintaining the required records and self-inspections, as well as the pressure testing that is required by the federal EPA. This will also keep us in compliance with hopefully the interlocal agreement with NDEP to ensure that we're also meeting their state mandates for ensuring that we have safe operatable systems, and also ensuring that our local areas and regional groundwater is being protected. So again, in February of 2014, I know most of you guys were probably not DBOH members at that time, but we were directed that all of our fees reflect the full cost of service provision, including a proportional share of the infrastructure support. So with that, our goal here is to be able to implement an interlocal agreement with NDEP. It is a reduced funding of $100,000 that does match what Southern Nevada does get. Those monies would offset the UST program costs, resulting in a permit fee, an annual permit fee for all UST facilities of $875 annually. We do have a proposed implementation plan that, should the DBOH approve these proposed permits and fees, that we would work with all of our facilities after January 1, notifying them that permits and fees would be required no later than July 1 of 2022. This would provide us 6 months of lead time to work with our facilities while also conducting inspections and ensuring that we could get them all permitted with Washoe County Health District. With that, I would like to also read a quick email that I received from Jonathan McRae. He's the supervisor with the UST program and LUST program with the Bureau of Corrective Actions with the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection. It reads, "Dear Board of Health members, I, Jonathan McRae, am the supervisor for the state UST program, and I am in favor of these proposed changes to the interlocal agreement that will allow the closest form of government agency to oversee the UST program in Washoe County. It is my belief that this will benefit owners and operators of regulated facilities in Washoe County by allowing people that are closest to them to be able to act and help those owners and operators with their compliance needs. I appreciate the time and energy that Wes Rubio and his staff have put into this, and think that the regulated facilities in Washoe County will benefit from himself and his group running the program through this interlocal agreement." I'll give Susie copies of these so that the board may have them as part of the record. And I believe with that,
Gotcha.
let me follow my notes. Therefore, the Washoe County Health District Environmental Health Services recommends that the District Board of Health adopt the business impact statement as provided. And then Luke and I are available to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Mr. Rubio.
Thank you.
Questions from the board? Councilman Dare?
Yeah. For the record, I can tell you, I don't love that we're going back to our people right now and asking for any fees and things, but I've understood, I just want to clarify that this is something that we've heard back that they actually, a lot of the people we've talked to would prefer this as well, in a sense that it's local and they'd rather us be involved, is what I've heard. I also want to know, do we have, can you speak to that? Because I want to make sure that's really clear. And then also, if the federal government chooses to change that, will this change back? Or do we not even see that as a possibility?
Those are actually great questions. To answer your first question, we reached out to as many people as we possibly could through the existing inspection process that we have. Everyone got an email, everyone got a postcard. We did not receive a huge fanfare of people showing up to our Zoom. Primarily, the people that showed up to the Zoom were the petroleum industry. And those leaders were people that I have met with, Luke and I have met with, and then we met with them again also during our public comment period for our workshops. They were the ones who spoke out in favor of us going ahead and implementing fees and keeping this at a local level versus moving it to the state jurisdiction. They were also the ones that brought up the potential that, yes, a singular local facility may feel a little bit more impact. However, any facility that is operating in Washoe County that also has operations, say, in any neighboring California county, Southern Nevada, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, already has local permitting attached to it. So that's where their comments came from. They felt that, yes, we all agree that asking for permit fees at this time is always not favorable. In fact, it's truly never really favorable. However, in order to maintain these services and provide this level of service, we cannot do it with the reduced funding that was received. To answer your second question, the state at this time will be seeking in the next legislative session to likely implement their own permit fees in order to support their program at this time as well. So even if this program were to go back to the state, it is likely that we will see permit fees throughout the rest of the state because of the reduced funding level from the EPA. At this time, there does not appear to be a change. However, I couldn't tell you one way or another what that would look like in a month or in a year.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Rubio, just for clarity, the 875, that's with the $100,000 grant that we received from NDEP, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so if we were to not do the 875 and I go straight to the state, without the NDEP funding, what would it be per permit?
Without the NDEP funding, it would end up being $1,334.
Yeah, so this is the right thing to do, and it also keeps it local. And it keeps 1.1 positions here local to continue to doing the inspections, correct?
It does. It also continues to allow us as a local jurisdiction to work with these entities that we have been inspecting since 1989 and working locally with an established process.
Great. Any public comment, Susie?
No public comment.
No public comment. Can I get a motion? There's a recommended possible motion on the page. Councilman Dare, you have a good voice for this.
I don't have good eyes for it, so. Okay.
Turn one page over. There you go.
Page, here we go. Okay, I move to adopt the business impact statement regarding Washoe County Health District permitting and fees for all underground storage tanks facilities, with the finding that the permitting and fees do not impose a direct or significant economic burden on a business, nor do the proposed fees directly restrict formation, operation, or expansion of a business, and set a public hearing for possible adoption of the proposed permitting and fees December 16, 2021 at 1 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Got a motion?
Second.
Got a second? Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Rubio. Thank you, Luke. Item number 12, we have here Mr. Kelly. Go on down.
Good afternoon. For the record, I'm David Kelly. I'm a supervisor in Environmental Health Services, and I oversee the safe drinking and land development programs. As indicated in the staff report, the updated interlocal agreement before you today incorporates some changes that we've discussed previously in the contract between NDP, Bureau of Safe Drinking Water, and Washoe County Health District for the oversight of publicly regulated water systems here in Washoe County. The changes to the contract necessitated some of these changes, and in addition, during that discussion, because we were already opening it back up, we decided to look at some other things that we had previously thought would be a good addition if the ILA had worked. The existing ILA was entered into in 2018, and it allows for Truckee Meadows Water Authority to independently approve water projects for some certain limited expansions within the water system. The intent was to have a process that streamlined engineering review and design, and everyone that has been involved with this process felt that it has worked very well without any major issues. So during the discussion on updating the ILA, it was brought forward. TUMWA oversees several smaller groundwater systems that are separate from the main system that were not included in the original, and the decision was to bring those in to follow the same process that has worked so well. The summary of the changes to the ILA are: one, we've included all of the TUMWA water systems. This is probably the most substantial change, I guess, because it does add additional water systems. However, what we're really doing is creating all of the water systems following the same process rather than having two different processes. The regular authorities that changed with the scope of work have been updated. If you don't remember, but what the largest system, which is the surface water system, will now be overseen by NDEP, while we retain the groundwater in independent systems. That mirrors Southern Nevada, and that was decided during the contract approval. The expiration date for the revised ILA was extended to December 31st, 2026, just because that seemed reasonable. And there were some minor editorial tasks and things that changed that were completed during the first term of the ILA, and those were removed. The Board of Truckee Meadows Water Authority has already approved this ILA. I did not get confirmation back from the state, but they will be the last stage for finalization. But I can tell you that all legal has looked at it, risk management, and all parties are in favor. I'm happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Good. Questions from the board? Councilman Dare.
Mine's not a question, I just want to say good job. I think collaborating on this is a conversation we've had for years, actually. And we appreciate that we get to function in this way, and I do appreciate the health board and our place and what we'll do as a health district as well.
Yeah.
So I would let people know I'm the vice chair of Tumwa. Probably good for people to know that as I support this, but I support it with both hats and whatever other hat I wear.
And it was a big conversation with respect to regional concurrent conversations, development, and so forth. So thank you for all the work. You know, it's something we said we carried forward, and appreciate you, Mr. Kelly, on making that happen. So it's a really big deal. Further comments from the board? See none, public comment?
No public comment.
All right, can I get someone to read the possible motion? We're gonna roll number three, Councilman, number 3.
I can do it.
Oh, the chief.
I got the glasses
There-
on now.
There you go.
So I move to approve the update of the interlocal agreement between Washoe County Health District, Nevada Division of Environmental Protection Bureau of Safe Drinking Water, and the Truckee Meadows Water Authority to reflect the 2021-2023 changes to contract scope of work and grant to Tumwa the same authorities provided to the groundwater systems.
Got a motion and a second? A second for discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 13, District Health Officer.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Delgado. Based on advice from legal, I think we should pull item 13. We felt it was a minor clerical error on the incorrect dates posted on the subject line, but since we had public comment in opposition to continuing with that, I
Like
would
to
recommend
continue item
that we,
13 to next month?
we continue the item till next month. We get it correctly on the agenda.
Legal, can we get
Or
a
for the December meeting, probably.
December? Okay. Legal, can I, so we'd ask the board member to continue that, or as an action?
Mr. Chair, I see the discrepancy in the report. It does state it's a 3-year term. Whether or not the report can reasonably be interpreted to be 3 years that have already passed.
Yeah.
Clearly, a member of the audience expressed that it could be and raised the prospect of an AGO complaint. So I think the board needs to balance that against the necessity to continue it to correct the clerical error.
No problem with that. Do we need an action from the board to continue the item? Jess?
That would be advisable.
Can I get a continuation?
I do have one question on it with this, as of us postponing this, does this put anything in of the work that needs to be done? Are we?
We covered as a board members?
I would have to defer to Mr.
I thought so.
Vega if we have
I'm
any
looking at him.
pending air pollution control cases.
Are we in the middle of something at this second that this causes a thing that we can push it off?
Yeah, excellent question. For the record, Francisco Vega, Director of the Air Quality Management Division. This will not impact any kind of appeals or decision-making at this time. Yep.
Thank you. Looking for a motion for continuation to December?
So moved.
Motion?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 14, the district health officer advised me, should we go ahead and move forward with that? Are you okay with that?
So
District health officer, I know we're running short on. So ultimately, for everybody to know is, there's another meeting here at 5:30. So we are running short.
5 p.m.
Or 5 p.m., so we have an hour. So the district health officer had offered that we move his evaluation to December to give proper conversation, which he's okay with. He had asked in order for us to get through the other reports before we get kicked out. Is that okay? So can I get a motion to move item 14 to December?
Moved a motion to move 14 to the December meeting.
Any second? Second, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 15, air quality. Mr. Vega, come back up.
Thank you, Chair Delgado, members of the board. For the record, Francisco Vega, Director of the Air Quality Management Division. I'll make this quick, but there is something I would like to update the board on. Over the last year, I've kept this board kind of up to date on what's been going on the Clean Cars Nevada initiative. I'm pleased to report that last Friday, the Clean Cars Nevada initiative completed the regulatory process and was approved by the Legislative Commission. Now, why is this important for the residents of Washoe County is because we continue to have issues with ozone here. And again, the biggest kind of contributor to that issue is the transportation sector. So anything that we can do to reduce those emissions is important. And again, this goes a big way in addressing those issues. So what does that mean is it beginning with model year 2025, so late calendar year 2024, the residents of Washoe County will have more options when it comes to purchasing low emitting or zero emitting vehicles. So a good thing for us. With that, I'd be more than happy to answer any kind of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Vega. Any questions for Mr. Vega? Seeing none, thank you, sir, for your report. 15B. Come on back, Ms. Lotritz.
Lisa Lottridge, Division Director for Community and Clinical Health Services. I just have two things to add. Our program report this month focused on fetal infant mortality review. And we found out later after I made our report that Health Plan of Nevada is partnering with Count the Cchs. And this is exciting because our Washoe County FEMA program had actually made this recommendation due to the fact that many of the fetal deaths that we have reviewed showed a delay in seeking care for decreased fetal movement. So this Count the Cchs will focus on the importance of tracking fetal movement on a daily basis in the third trimester. So we're excited that that's coming to Nevada. And then the other thing to add is that WIC was able to extend the expanded cash value amount for fruits and vegetables for our WIC clients. So that's exciting. And that's all I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for your report. Appreciate it. 15C, Ms. Dixon.
Good afternoon. For the record, Erin Dixon, Environmental Health Services. You've already heard from the water program, the UST program, and the food program today, so I will keep this very quick. Our highlighted program in the Division Director Staff Report was our temporary foods program. Two things that I just wanted to highlight that you may not be aware of is that our temporary food program also doesn't just issue permits for the individual food operators for our large events, and we consider those events that will host over 5,000 people per day or 10,000 people over 14 days. We actually also require a promoter's event permit as well, so that we have someone on site who is monitoring the entire event and assisting us with those types of things. In addition, our permits are not, our inspectors don't just go out and do inspections just on site for our temporary foods. There's a lot of prep work that's done. Everyone who comes in and applies for a permit is going to get a phone call and an interview. They're going to discuss the menu. They're going to discuss the equipment. They're going to discuss and make sure that that operator has everything that they need to be successful before we go out. So we try to make sure that they are as successful as possible. Other than that, I will answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Ms. Dixon? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
15E, District Health Officer. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I skipped Dr. Dow. Sorry, my apologies.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is Nancy Dow, Division Director of Epidemiology and Public Health Preparedness. No updates to my report. I do want to note that in general communicable disease, we are seeing an increase in the number of open outbreaks in childcare and elementary school settings in September, predominantly respiratory-related illness. So that's your CLI, ILI, strep, rhinovirus, and RSV, with a drop in gastrointestinal-related outbreaks since compared to spring and summer. This is not atypical for the fall and winter month, and since school is in session. The only outlier this year is, of course, RSV. We are at currently 5 open RSV outbreaks as of this week. That's all from me. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Dr. Dow?
I have one question.
Councilman.
Yes.
Can you update us on the flu a little bit, what's happening?
Flu, we are not seeing a huge uptick as of right now. I think a lot of COVID is taking over, right? So we see a lot more COVID-like illness rather than influenza-like illness.
Gotcha, so it kind of mixes all together? Like she said, it opens the door for each other?
Yeah,
Is that why you say
so
that?
these two viruses are, a lot of the symptoms are similar, but you can get co-infected with both at the same time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Dr. Dow,
Thank you.
appreciate your report, thank you. District Health Officer.
Yes, thank you, Chair Delgado. I want to begin with our COVID-19 response and address some of the comments that I heard earlier during the public comment period. Just wanted to provide clarification that. So I'm sorry. So I just wanted to provide some clarification on our COVID-19 response based on some of the comments that were made in that the Health District and the District Board of Health don't have any direction over medical personnel in hospitals or over pharmacists or over treatment that can be provided or drugs that are available in our community. So that's just not under the District Board of Health. And also, we don't have any directives in place. The governor has issued his directives, and we don't have any authority to end the governor's emergency. Let's see, we do have Comirnaty. It's in our freezers. We are dispensing it. It is available in the United States. I believe we had a public comment at the last meeting or the one before that about Comirnaty. We had that Comirnaty when that public comment was provided. We also had very few cases of flu last year, and that was noted. When we were testing for COVID-19 last year, the state lab was running a combined test looking for both COVID-19 and flu. And Charles River's lab also has a combined test. So in the event that we need to go to Charles River lab, if the state lab gets bogged down in the future, they can also look for the COVID-19 and flu. So it wasn't that we weren't testing and we just missed flu last year. And I think the reason that we had such few flu cases is that masks work and mitigation measures work to prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. And then, we haven't had any changes with the mask mandate. There were comments made about last month or 2 days ago. The governor's mask mandate has been in effect since July 27th with the CDC's designation of our county as high or substantial transmissions. And let's see, lastly, somebody commented about breakthrough cases and data that's available on breakthrough cases, and it's not posted on our dashboard, and I think we can consider doing that. But our epidemiology program is tracking breakthrough cases, and we don't need to ask people when they get tested whether they're vaccinated or not, because we can run through WebIZ all of the confirmed lab results that we get that are COVID-19 positive and ascertain whether that person had been fully vaccinated or not. And so prior to the end of June of this year, we had less than 10% breakthrough cases occurring each month. And in July, we had 21.2% of our cases were breakthrough cases. In August, 20.4% of our cases were breakthrough cases. And in September, 22.9% of our cases were breakthrough cases. That's all cases, not just the hospitalized cases. And I think we can attribute that to several things. One, the Delta variant, that was just first appearing in June and was hitting us more in those 3 months. So we know that that one is more transmissible. We also know that the vaccine continues to provide excellent protection against severe illness and death for the Delta variant and all coronavirus. I think the other reasons for this are that we also have seen that there is some waning in the efficacy of the vaccine. And so that may also be contributing to these higher numbers of breakthrough cases. And thirdly, as more of our population becomes vaccinated, we'll have fewer cases of COVID-19. But because we have higher vaccination levels, the number of those cases that are breakthrough cases is going to, that percentage is going to increase. So that's my summary on the breakthrough cases that have occurred. I wanted to also give an update on, since I've provided my report to the board on October 18th, we have seen our decline in cases that were occurring reverse itself, and we're seeing some increases now. I do want to apologize. I had a typo in the one paragraph that said we're continuing to see increases, but then in the rest of the paragraph, I gave you stats on the decreases of the cases, so apologies for that. We were seeing decreases. But our positivity rate is today at 9.7, but it's been bouncing around between 9.6 and 10.5 or so for a week. So it's been going up and down in those areas, and we're not continuing to see a decline right now in the positivity rate. Our cases per 100,000 over a 30-day period are at 677. So that's gone down, but that's also a lagging indicator. When you look at our new cases, our 7-day average of new cases, we've increased from 102.9 on the 18th to 127.4 today. So we've had a significant increase of new cases occurring over the past 10 days. And the cases per 100,000 over a 70-day period have increased from 146.34 to 161.61. People that are hospitalized for COVID-19 in Washoe County has increased from 98 to 115 over that 10-day period. So we are currently seeing an uptrend in cases that are occurring, and that's of concern as we're entering the respiratory disease season and our holiday season. And we know that last year when we had our Nevada Day and Halloween celebrations going on, that we did see a significant bump in cases occurring from that. So just wanted to provide that update on where we're at. We've had also a significant increase in the number of vaccinations that are being administered countywide. So we've gone from just over 7,000 doses administered per week countywide to 10,069 doses this past week that were administered. And a lot of that is because of people that are getting their boosters and third doses. So we had about 60% of those 10,000 doses were boosters and third doses. About 20% were people coming for a first dose, and about 20% people getting their second dose of vaccine. I think it's also encouraging, though, that we are seeing an increase in the number of people that are coming to get their first dose countywide. The vaccination rates are increasing, so we're up over 65% now of the population 12 and older that's received their first dose, and we're over 71% of the population that's received their second dose. The We do have a problem, though, currently with scheduling for boosters because of the state's Salesforce scheduling platform for people getting vaccinated. We're using that, and the Southern Nevada Health District is using that. And it has not yet gone live for the booster doses, which has caused a couple of problems for us that occurred the other day. And that is, we had people that were scheduling to get a third dose that were showing up to get a booster dose and not the third dose, which is the one that's for immunocompromised people to finish the series. So the booster dose is half the size of the third dose for Moderna. And I should have clarified, this problem is for Moderna. We are able to schedule booster doses for Pfizer. But for Moderna, we currently can't. And the problem with people showing up to schedule a third dose is we then have to change their information around so that the records report that they're only getting the half dose that they need for the booster, and we have to get them in a different lane because we don't want to be mixing up the shots in one lane of people that are getting a first, second, third dose versus the booster. And then we also have people that don't schedule that show up, and then we've got to try to sort them out. So we had a problem the other day where we had people that were mixed up in the line with people that were scheduled and were there to get what they were supposed to be getting, people that were scheduled to be tested, and people that they were waiting behind people that were in those first two categories that scheduled wrong for a third dose of Moderna or didn't have any appointment at all. So we're working hard to get that straightened out. I was in touch with the governor's office yesterday because we were hearing from the state agency that they were going to push it back another week from November 3rd to when they expected us to be able to use Salesforce. So I think the governor got engaged and we're back on track. We're supposed to be testing the Salesforce platform on Monday, and hopefully we'll be live on Wednesday for people to be able to schedule their boosters. However, we have plenty of availability in the community, and this past week, the health district only administered about 11% of all vaccines administered in Washoe County. And so we're messaging for people to go to their pharmacies or their providers if they're looking for the booster doses of the Moderna, and we'll get that information out as soon as we've got the Salesforce platform available, and then people can get scheduled to come through our pod to get that. So that's my update on the COVID-19. I did also want to highlight that the health district received recognition from Washoe County in what was an annual event prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, is the Washoe Impact Awards. And so they brought that back this year, and we received the Manager's Award for our response through the health district in conjunction with our partners for COVID-19. And we also received the Communications Award for the collaboration between our call center and Washoe County 311 in the efforts to provide information to the community about COVID-19 to help them with scheduling and with testing, vaccination scheduling and testing for COVID-19. So appreciated getting that recognition. I wanted to share that with the board. And then lastly, the Truckee Meadows Healthy Communities has merged with Truckee Meadows Tomorrow. So we've been doing a lot of work with Truckee Meadows Healthy Communities, and we've also been supporting Truckee Meadows Tomorrow. Truckee Meadows Tomorrow has been around for about 30 years. It's got a great quality of life indicators dashboard on their website. They compile all kinds of data about our community and quality of life. And Truckee Meadows Healthy Communities has been an organization bringing together many different sectors to work around public health issues and priorities. Truckee Meadows Tomorrow had kind of waned a little bit. Their executive director, Erica Marich, says they were in hibernation for a few years when we got Truckee Meadows Healthy Communities going, but they're back and revitalized, and we felt it was really important to get those two organizations merged together. So I was serving as the president of Truckee Meadows Healthy Communities, and I've joined the board of Truckee Meadows Tomorrow, and a few of other of our board members have as well for continuity, but we'll be combined as one moving forward with Truckee Meadows Tomorrow, and we'll be working closely with them for community engagement and information getting out about our upcoming community health needs assessment. be happy to take any questions. That's the end of my
All
report.
right, comments from the board? Very thorough review, appreciate that. Kevin? For the report, we'll move on to item 16, board comments. Comments from the board, general board comments. See none, we'll close item 16, we'll move on to public comment. Susie, do we have any public comment?
Yes, we have Mr. Murray Kane, followed by Ms. Janet Butcher, as I see that Ms. Quintana has left.
Yes, first of all, I just wanted to apologize for the outburst I made before about the description of the lack of approval of these so-called vaccines. I particularly wanted to apologize to Dr. Danko, who was trying to give an informative presentation. However, I think what you've got to understand is that this is, and I'm sure you do understand, it's a very emotional subject among many. As of October 15, on the CDC website, over 7,800 Americans are shown as dead as a result of these so-called injections. How many of them thought that the FDA had approved the injection? How many of those 7,800 people who are now dead and buried thought that the FDA approved those injections when they didn't? And the tens of thousands of people who have been, or hundreds of thousands of people who have been otherwise significantly affected and disabled by the so-called vaccine. So it's a very emotional subject. These are not statistics, these are people. And I think we need to be crystal clear, because this use of the word approval being thrown around is very misleading. We all know what approval by the FDA means. And emergency use authorization is not approval. And then I wanted to, on a positive note, indicate that there's been some very good Ivermectin studies that have come out in the last few weeks. And I hope that, and I'll send a written version of this, but I hope that you will take with full consideration a look at the Laurie Bryant meta-analysis in the American Journal of Therapeutics, June 2021, the Andrew Hill meta-analysis of the benefits of ivermectin to treat. Because we got to get back to, this is a disease like anything else. Why aren't we talking more about treating? And I'm glad that was mentioned, but let's be more positive and aggressive with using all the tools that we have. The Andrew Hill study published by Oxford University Press on behalf of Infectious Diseases Society of America, July 2021, and the Paul Marek study researching the different clinical stages of COVID, pinpointing treatment, including ivermectin, a scoping review published by the International Journal of Immunopathology and Pharmacology, September 2021. And if you have Pfizer vaccine in your freezer, you can have ivermectin there too, or at least you could encourage the local, encourage the local doctors and nurses to prescribe ivermectin and the HCQ and all the other items that were mentioned for treatment, not just hitting them with vaccines that have killed and maimed thousands.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Janet Butcher, followed by Ms. Darla Lee.
Janet Butcher. I appreciate the information the gentleman just gave us. My cousin died in September, right in front of a physician getting the shot. Want to say that because you don't want to take the injection does not make you anti-vaxxer. In 1975, I was upset because my youngest daughter, was not allowed to get the smallpox vaccine. So I'm pretty sure I'm not anti-vaccine. My kids were all vaccinated with an approved vaccine. We're misleading people by saying it's a vaccine. It's not. Until it reaches the approval, we're the experiment. I know I'm not a doctor, but sometimes doctors don't always have all the answers. I love doctors. I had 3 surgeons save my life. But for one thing, I myself diagnosed my daughter a few years ago with a blood infection before her doctor did. I want to thank all the essential workers, especially those who are being disenfranchised by these senseless mandates. And I'm going to read something. I hope I can get through it quick enough. It was written by a nurse. This week I gave up being a nurse. I worked my final shift. This week I showed my children from your values never drift. Take the shot or turn in my keys. I just ran out of time. The email laying out my fate burned forever in my mind. No choice, no say, no exemptions heard. The mandate made it clear. I must comply to keep my job, sacrificing my health, I fear. I look my husband in the eyes, he's got to make enough. Pushing the fears, he will be next, paying the mortgage will be rough. Standing strong in my conviction, I do accept my fate, watching those around me fold the pressure they could not take. Next they come for the children, since the adults all complied. Up to date or keep them home from the health pass you can't hide. Times are dark as people divide the hate you cannot ignore. To free this world, we must only stand. Christ's love will win this war. So, if you want to get this experimental injection, please do. But don't force the rest of us to make that choice.
Thank you.
Ms. Darley, followed by Mr. Wayne Gordon.
Yeah, Darla Lee for the record. Hello again. I want to thank Dr. Danko for her report, but unfortunately, this gave most of us very little that we didn't know. What I do know is that a friend of mine did go to the hospital and was sent home with oxygen because she was having breathing, distress. She continued to be sick. She returned to the hospital where she perished. I do know of many people who tested positive for COVID, and they have received nothing except to go home and stay there until you are well, hopefully. Then there is the pitiful example of a family in my neighborhood who had 2 young girls in second and kindergarten. They forgot to take their allergy medicine one morning and were sneezing in school. Their mother told the school about the oversight, but no matter. The girls had to stay home for 2 weeks, missing their chance at education. And then we have the college students also barred from attending next semester unless they are vaccinated. This age group, 18 to 24, are not a high-risk group, yet they are being discriminated. And why you as a board are not standing against this obvious attempt to vilify the unvaccinated is just beyond me. I could not finish my comment in regard to my daughter before, but she has worked for a large health insurance company for 15 years. She's works from home the entire time. She still works from home. She has a husband who is basically an invalid. This is the perfect way for her to supply the family with income. And yet, she is being mandated to have a vaccine that she does not want, but she truly believes that she deserves a religious exemption, which I doubt very much will be given. It's just really tragic because you as a board are not standing against such discrimination. You're silent while my daughter and so many others in this county are being deprived of their livelihood. At the very least, you could propose a resolution to the effect that you stand for personal health choices and not the current tyranny. Because for you to just comment and say, oh, I haven't had the vaccine, or the therapeutics are okay, that sometimes we give them in the hospital, well, that's fine. We can hear these comments, but that really doesn't say a whole lot for the community as a whole. And if you cannot do that, then I truly think you should take down your motto, because you are not enhancing the quality of life in this county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Wayne Gordon?
I'd like to start by asking Mr. Dick why he doesn't believe in listening to the public. Very discourteous behavior when somebody was up there addressing you and you completely ignored them, got up and had a conversation with one of these young ladies over here.
Director, comments to the.
Is this a public comment thing when you're supposed to be listening or no? I did want to say that I thought that Dr. Danko's presentation was very nice. I learned some things I did not know before. I'm not sure I wanted to know them, but that's beside the point. One of the things that she didn't cover was the flu vaccines versus the COVID-19 vaccines. My understanding is the flu vaccine, and I'm not an anti-vaxxer because I've gotten flu vaccines, and just before this thing started, I got the shingles vaccine, anti-shingles vaccine. So I've had lots of vaccines in my life, but I do not believe in this particular vaccine. There's a difference between this vaccine and a flu vaccine. My understanding, or if we go back to polio, which is the first one I remember, in the early 50s, that was made from something physical. This is being made from a chemical, or actually a genetically modified item. There's people that are getting this vaccine and then go into the farmer's market because they don't want to get GMO food. And yet they're letting somebody jab them with this stuff. And it seems very counterproductive to me. Next, you said that this body, or the county of Washoe, doesn't have the authority. They do have the authority to end this. You just end it. Don't participate in this stuff because it's wrong. First of all, a mandate is not a law. A law is passed by the legislature, signed by the governor, written in, and then used. A mandate is just, I want you to do this, and that's all we have. Right now, I see us marching in a bad way, very bad way, that probably Germany saw in 1935.
Thank you.
No further public comment, Chair.
No further public comment. Looking at the audience, anyone that has not spoken? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. We'll move to adjournment. Can I get somebody from the board?
Move to adjourn.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your day today.